The moment Elena Cross stepped between a killer and his target, she signed her own death warrant. One whispered warning at a waterfront gala. One man saved. One decision that shattered everything she knew about survival. Now they're hunting her, faceless enemies who move through shadows, who know her name, who won't stop until she's erased. But Elena isn't the frightened waitress they think she is. She's something far more dangerous, someone who sees what others miss. And what she's about to uncover will either save thousands of lives or bury her 6 feet under. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Marquise Ballroom smelled like money and lies. Elena Cross balanced another tray of champagne flutes, her shoulder aching from 4 hours of weaving through clusters of people who looked through her like she was furniture, the kind of people who dropped more on cufflinks than she made in a month. She'd learned to move with invisible precision, close enough to serve, far enough not to intrude on conversations about stock portfolios and summer homes in the Hamptons. "More champagne, sweetheart," a silver-haired man snapped without looking at her. Elena poured with a practiced smile that never touched her eyes. 28 years old, and she'd perfected the art of being nobody. It was safer that way. Always had been. The ballroom stretched before her in waves of black tuxedos and designer gowns, all of it bathed in the amber glow of crystal chandeliers. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the marina where yachts bobbed gently against their moorings, their running lights reflected in dark water. The West Bridge Charity Gala. 500 guests, each one richer than sin, all pretending to care about underprivileged youth while they drained bottles that cost more than a semester of college. Elena had worked dozens of these events. They all blurred together after a while. Same faces, same forced laughter, same careful performances of wealth and influence. But tonight felt wrong. She couldn't pin it down at first. Just an itch between her shoulder blades, a tightness in her gut that she'd learned not to ignore. Years ago, before the waitressing gig, before she'd scraped together enough money to disappear into anonymity, Elena had learned to read rooms the way other people read books. It was a skill born from necessity, honed in places where missing a warning sign could get you killed. Her eyes tracked the crowd with methodical precision. Couples dancing near the string quartet, clusters of men discussing business deals, women comparing jewelry with competitive smiles. Then she saw him. Dark suit, 30-something. Moving through the crowd with purpose that didn't match the lazy rhythm of the party. His hand kept drifting to his hip, a tell so obvious it might as well have been a flashing sign. Elena's pulse kicked up. She recognized the pattern. The controlled breathing, the way his gaze locked onto a target across the room and never wavered. She followed his sightline. Victor Hale stood near the bar, surrounded by a loose circle of associates. Mid-50s, built like someone who'd fought his way up from nothing and remembered every step. His reputation preceded him everywhere he went. Real estate magnate, philanthropist, and according to whispers Elena had overheard in kitchen gossip, something considerably more dangerous underneath the polish. The man in the dark suit moved closer. His right hand disappeared inside his jacket. Elena's body reacted before her brain caught up. She changed direction, cutting through a group of laughing women, her tray held high. Her mind ran calculations, distance, angles, seconds remaining. The ballroom's security was positioned at the entrances, not scattered through the crowd. They'd never react in time. She had maybe 10 seconds. 8, 6. The dark-suited man's hand emerged from his jacket, gripping something metallic. Elena couldn't see it clearly through the bodies between them, but she didn't need to. She knew what was coming. 4 seconds. She reached Victor Hale's circle just as the man broke through the crowd behind them. Elena moved in close, her shoulder brushing against Victor's arm as she leaned in to collect empty glasses from the high-top table beside him. "The terrace," she breathed, her lips barely moving. "Now." Victor's head turned sharply. His eyes, ice blue and unnervingly sharp, locked onto hers for a split second. Most people would have ignored her, brushed her off as a confused waitress. But whatever Victor Hale was, he wasn't most people. He read her face in that instant, saw something there that made him move. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Victor said smoothly, already turning toward the French doors that led to the outdoor terrace. "I need some air." His 2 companions, thick-necked men in expensive suits that didn't quite hide their nature, followed without question. Elena stayed rooted in place, her hands gripping the tray so hard her knuckles went white. The dark-suited man emerged from the crowd exactly where Victor had been standing 3 seconds earlier. His face twisted with frustration, eyes scanning wildly for his target. He spotted Victor's back disappearing through the terrace doors. For a heartbeat, Elena thought he might pursue. Instead, he turned and melted back into the crowd with practiced ease, moving toward the main exit. Elena's legs felt like water. She forced herself to keep moving, to maintain the invisible servant routine. She collected glasses, refilled champagne, smiled at people who didn't see her, but her mind was racing, adrenaline singing through her veins. What the hell had she just done? The gala continued around her like nothing had happened. Because to everyone else, nothing had. Just another night of excess and performance. They had no idea how close they'd come to blood on the marble floors. Elena finished her shift on autopilot. 90 more minutes of serving and smiling and disappearing into the background. When the head caterer finally dismissed the staff, Elena grabbed her jacket and headed for the service exit, desperate for fresh air and distance from the too bright ballroom. The night air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp with the smell of salt water. She pulled her jacket tighter and started toward the employee parking lot, her mind still churning through what she'd witnessed. "You have good instincts." Elena spun around, her heart jumping into her throat. Victor Hale stood 15 feet away, partially shadowed by the overhang of the service entrance. His two companions flanked him at a distance, their postures watchful. Up close, Victor looked older than she'd thought. Lines around his eyes that spoke of hard years, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "I don't know what you're talking about," Elena said automatically. The lie felt hollow even as she spoke it. Victor smiled without warmth. "You warned me. In the ballroom. Told me to move to the terrace." Elena's mind scrambled for an exit strategy. "I think you're confused. I was just—" "Don't!" Victor's voice remained conversational, but something in his tone made Elena's spine straighten. "I've survived this long by knowing when someone's trying to save my life. You saw something. What was it?" Elena measured her options. Running seemed stupid. The two men with Victor looked like they could cover ground fast. Lying clearly wasn't working. That left something approximating the truth. "There was a man," she said carefully, "moving through the crowd. Wrong energy for the party. His hand kept going to his waistband. He was tracking you." "What did he look like?" "Dark suit, brown hair, mid-30s maybe, lean, moved like someone with training." Elena paused. "He left after you went to the terrace. Headed out the main entrance." One of Victor's companions spoke into his phone in low, clipped tones. Victor studied Elena with an intensity that made her want to shift her weight, but she held still. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena. Elena Cross." "You military, Elena Cross? Law enforcement?" "No." "But you recognized a threat pattern in a crowded room full of civilians." It wasn't a question. Interesting skill set for a waitress. Elena felt exposed under his gaze, like he was peeling back layers she'd spent years constructing. "I should go. My shift's over." "You saved my life tonight," Victor said quietly. "That creates a debt. More than that, it creates a connection, whether you want it or not." "I don't want anything from you," Elena said, and meant it. "Consider us even. I go my way, you go yours." Victor's expression shifted, something almost like regret crossing his features. "I wish it worked like that. I really do. But that man you saw? He's not going to forget this night. And the people who sent him? They're going to wonder what went wrong, wonder who warned me." Cold dread settled in Elena's stomach. "Nobody saw me talk to you. It was just a second. My associates moved the moment you spoke. Anyone watching would have noticed the timing." Victor took a step closer. "Elena, you need to understand something. The kind of people who send assassins to charity galas? They're thorough. They'll review security footage. They'll interview staff. They'll reconstruct what happened until they find the variable that didn't fit." "That's not my problem," Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. "It became your problem the moment you opened your mouth to warn me." Victor pulled something from his pocket, a business card. "This is a secure number. It won't trace back to anything official. If you notice anything unusual in the next few days, people following you, questions from strangers, anything that feels off, you call this number immediately." Elena stared at the card without taking it. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to keep you alive. Victor's voice was matter of fact. What you did tonight was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Now we both have to live with the consequences. He set the card on the concrete ledge beside the door, then stepped back. His companions moved with him, already scanning the parking lot. Go home, Elena Cross, Victor said. Lock your doors, keep your phone close, and if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you use that number. They walked away before she could respond, disappearing around the corner of the building. Elena stood frozen for a long moment, staring at the business card like it was a snake. Finally, she grabbed it and shoved it in her pocket. The drive home took 20 minutes through empty streets. Elena lived in a modest apartment in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but safe and quiet. She'd chosen it specifically for those qualities after years of instability. The building had good locks, attentive neighbors, and proximity to public transit in case she ever needed to leave in a hurry. Old habits from old lives. Elena parked in her assigned spot and took the stairs to her third-floor unit. Everything looked normal. Same scuffed hallway carpet, same flickering light fixture that the landlord kept promising to fix. She unlocked her door and stepped inside, immediately hitting the lights. Her apartment greeted her with familiar emptiness. Small living room, kitchenette along one wall, bedroom and bathroom beyond. Minimal furniture, no photographs, nothing that couldn't be abandoned in an hour if necessary. She'd lived here for 3 years, and it still felt temporary. Elena locked the door behind her, engaged the deadbolt and chain, then sagged against the wall. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. She pulled Victor's card from her pocket and studied it in the overhead light. A single phone number, nothing else. No name, no logo, no identifying information. She should throw it away. Pretend tonight never happened. Go back to her invisible life of serving drinks and avoiding complications. But Victor's words kept echoing in her mind. They're thorough. They'll find the variable that didn't fit. Elena had spent years making herself invisible. She'd changed her name, her appearance, her entire life to escape a past that couldn't find her if she didn't exist. The last thing she needed was to become visible to people who sent killers to black-tie galas. She set the card on her kitchen counter and moved to her bedroom, changed out of her work clothes into sweats and a t-shirt, tried to convince herself that everything would be fine, that Victor was being paranoid, that by tomorrow, this would all feel like a weird dream. She was brushing her teeth when she heard the sound. Soft, deliberate. The scrape of metal against metal. Someone was trying to pick her lock. Elena's training kicked in instantly. She spit in the sink, rinsed quickly, then moved with silent precision to her bedroom closet. Behind a stack of shoeboxes, tucked in a space she'd carved out of the drywall, was a lockbox. She keyed in the combination with shaking fingers. The box opened. Inside was everything from her old life that she'd promised herself she'd never need again. Fake IDs, cash in various currencies, a burner phone, and a Glock 19 with 2 spare magazines. Elena hadn't touched the gun in 3 years. Her fingers found it now with muscle memory she'd hoped to forget. She checked the chamber, still loaded, still ready, and moved to position herself behind her bedroom door. The picking sounds continued for another 30 seconds. Then silence. Elena waited, barely breathing. Her apartment had only one entrance. Whoever was out there had 2 options, break down the door or give up. The deadbolt and chain would slow them down, but not stop them if they were determined. Footsteps in the hallway, moving away. Elena didn't lower the gun. She counted to 100, then 200, listening for any sound of return. Nothing. She stayed in position for another 15 minutes before finally crossing to her window. Her apartment overlooked the parking lot. She edged the curtain aside and scanned the area. A dark sedan sat idling 3 spots down from her car. Even from 3 floors up, Elena could see the shape of someone in the driver's seat. They were watching, waiting. Elena pulled out her phone with her free hand and dialed the number on Victor's card. He answered on the first ring. "Talk to me." "Someone just tried to pick my lock," Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "There's a car watching my building. Dark sedan, looks like a newer model BMW. Can't see the plates from here." "Where are you right now?" "My bedroom. Armed." A pause. "Good. Stay there. Don't approach the windows. My people are 15 minutes out." "What people? What is this?" The consequence I warned you about, Victor said grimly. They moved faster than I expected. Elena, I need you to listen carefully. When my people arrive, they're going to get you out of there. Pack light, only what you can carry in one bag. Essentials only. Can you do that? Elena's mind was spinning. I can't just leave. I have a job, a lease. Your lease won't matter if you're dead, Victor's voice sharpened. Elena, the people watching your building right now, they're not here to talk. They waited to see if anyone would come to help you. If you'd called the police, they would have disappeared. But you called me instead, which tells them everything they needed to know. Which is what? That you're connected to me. That you're valuable. And that means you're a target. Elena closed her eyes. This was insane. 12 hours ago, her biggest worry was making rent. Now she was holding a gun in her bedroom while killers waited outside. Why are they doing this? She asked. I'm nobody. I don't know anything. You know what their assassin looks like. You know what night he failed. And most importantly, you proved you can read a situation that professionals missed. Victor paused. To them, you're either an asset or a liability. They'll try to make you the first. If that fails, they'll settle for the second. Elena moved to her closet and pulled down a black duffel bag. She started grabbing clothes without looking at them. Jeans, shirts, a jacket. Who are they? That's what we're going to find out. 12 minutes now. Pack. Elena shoved essentials into the bag. Clothes, toiletries, her lockbox from the closet. She was operating on autopilot now, her brain focusing on logistics to avoid thinking about the larger implications. She'd done this before. Not in years, but the pattern was burned into her nervous system. Pack light. Move fast. Trust no one except the person currently keeping you alive. How will I know your people? She asked. They'll call your phone and say, Elena Cross, we're here for extraction. Do not open your door for anyone who doesn't use exactly those words. Extraction. You make it sound military. Some of them are. 10 minutes. Elena zipped the duffel bag and did a final scan of her apartment. Everything here represented 3 years of building a normal life. A safe life. And she was about to walk away from all of it because she'd whispered a warning to a stranger at a party. Victor, she said quietly, I should have minded my own business. Maybe, he agreed. But you didn't. And now we're both here. 9 minutes. Stay away from the windows. When my people arrive, you move fast and you don't look back. Understood? Understood. The next 9 minutes felt like hours. Elena sat on her bedroom floor with her back to the wall, gun in one hand, phone in the other. She could hear the normal sounds of her building, someone's TV playing too loud, footsteps overhead, the hum of the elevator. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Elena Cross, we're here for extraction. Elena grabbed her duffel bag and moved to the door. She disengaged the chain and deadbolt as quietly as possible, then eased the door open. 2 people stood in her hallway. A woman with short, dark hair and tactical clothing, and a man built like a linebacker. Both had the same watchful intensity she'd seen in Victor's companions earlier. Clear? The woman asked into a small radio. Clear, came the response. BMW's still in position. No visible movement. The woman looked at Elena. Sophia Chen, this is Marcus Webb. We're going out the back service entrance. There's a vehicle waiting. Stay between us and move when we move. Questions? Elena shook her head. Good. Let's go. They moved through the hallway with practiced efficiency. Marcus took point, Sophia brought up the rear, and Elena stayed in the middle, trying not to feel like she was in a military operation. They bypassed the elevator for the stairwell, descending quickly but quietly. At ground level, Marcus held up a hand. They stopped. He spoke into his radio. Status on the watcher? Still in position, no movement toward the building. Copy, exiting now. They emerged from a side door Elena had only used once when she first moved in. A black SUV idled at the curb, engine running. The rear door swung open. In, Sophia said. Elena climbed in, her duffel bag clutched to her chest. Sophia followed. Marcus got in the passenger seat. The driver, another severe-looking man Elena didn't recognize, pulled away from the curb with deliberate casualness. BMW? Marcus asked. Making the turn now, the driver said. They're following. Elena twisted to look out the rear window. Sure enough, the dark sedan had pulled out of the parking lot and was maintaining a careful distance. "Lose them," Sophia said calmly. What followed was the most terrifying 10 minutes of Elena's life. The driver navigated through residential streets with precise aggression, not racing, but making turns that would be difficult to follow without revealing pursuit. Left, right, through an alley, back onto a main road. The BMW stayed with them for 3 turns, then fell back. "Clear," Marcus confirmed. The SUV merged onto a highway heading north out of the city. Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house," Sophia said. "About 40 minutes. Victor will meet us there." Elena leaned back against the headrest and closed her eyes. Her phone buzzed. A text from her boss at the catering company. "Need you for a wedding tomorrow. 2 p.m. call time. Confirm?" She stared at the message. Tomorrow felt like a concept from another lifetime. "Sorry, family emergency. Have to take a few days." She hit send and turned off her phone. The safe house turned out to be a modern cabin tucked into wooded hills north of the city. Large windows, expensive finishes, completely isolated. The SUV pulled up a long gravel driveway and parked beside 2 other vehicles, including the one Victor had presumably arrived in. Inside, the cabin was warm and well lit. Leather furniture, a stone fireplace, a kitchen that looked barely used. Victor stood near the windows, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call when Elena entered. "You're okay?" he asked. "Define okay," Elena said. She set her duffel bag down and took in her surroundings. "Nice safe house." "You do this often?" "More than I'd like." Victor gestured to a couch. "Sit, you must have questions." Elena had about 1,000, but she started with the obvious one. "Who's trying to kill you?" "Kill me, specifically." Tonight's list includes at least 3 different organizations. "But the one who sent the assassin to the gala?" Victor settled into a chair across from her. "That's what I've been trying to figure out." "You have that many enemies?" "I have a complicated business portfolio." Victor's expression was unreadable. "Some of those complications involve people who prefer their problems solved with extreme prejudice." "Meaning you're not actually a real estate developer?" "I am, among other things." Victor leaned forward. "Elena, I'm going to be honest with you because you're already involved whether we like it or not. I operate in spaces between legal and illegal. I move money, resources, and information for people who can't do it themselves. Sometimes that's helping a startup secure funding. Sometimes it's facilitating deals that wouldn't survive daylight scrutiny." "So you're a criminal," Elena said flatly. "I'm an entrepreneur with flexible ethics," Victor corrected. "But yes, by most legal definitions, I've committed numerous crimes, the kind that make enemies, the kind that attract people willing to kill me at a charity gala." Elena processed this. "And now those same people think I'm part of your operation because I warned you." "Exactly. So what happens now?" Victor was quiet for a moment. "That depends. Option 1, we set you up with a new identity, new city, enough money to start over. You disappear completely and hope they lose interest. And option 2, you stay. Work with me until we figure out who's coming after us and why." Victor met her eyes. "I won't lie. It's dangerous. But you have skills I need. That threat assessment you did in the ballroom, most of my security team wouldn't have caught that. You saw it instantly." "I got lucky," Elena said. "Luck is reading a room full of people and identifying the one who doesn't fit in 3 seconds flat?" Victor shook his head. "That's training. Which raises the question I've been wanting to ask since you warned me. Where did a waitress learn to recognize an assassin?" Elena's jaw tightened. She'd known this was coming. "That's not relevant." "It's extremely relevant if you're staying." "I haven't decided if I'm staying." "Fair enough." Victor stood and moved to a cabinet, pulling out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. He poured without asking if she wanted any and set one in front of her. "But while you decide, maybe you can answer a simpler question. Why did you warn me?" Elena picked up the glass but didn't drink. "Instinct. Bullshit. You put yourself at risk for a complete stranger. People don't do that on instinct." She took a sip of the whiskey, let it burn down her throat. "I watched my father die when I was 17. He was a cop. Good one by all accounts. Someone shot him during a traffic stop. The shooter was maybe 20 feet from 3 different witnesses. None of them said a word. None of them even called 911 until after the shooter drove away. Victor's expression softened. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me something important. Elena set down the glass. If you see something wrong happening and you stay quiet, you're part of the problem. I saw someone about to die tonight. I couldn't just stand there. Even though warning me put a target on your back? I didn't know that would happen. Elena laughed bitterly. I thought I'd give you a heads up. You'd move, and that would be it. Clean hands, clear conscience. No such thing, Victor said. Not in my world. They sat in silence for a moment. Elena could hear Sophia and Marcus moving around in other parts of the cabin, securing the perimeter or whatever it was that security teams did. The cop thing explains the gun, Victor said finally, and probably the threat assessment skills. Your father teach you? Him in the firing range he took me to every weekend. Elena smiled slightly at the memory. He wanted me to be able to protect myself. Said the world was full of people who'd hurt you if you couldn't fight back. Smart man. He was. Elena stood and walked to the windows. Outside, darkness had settled over the woods. No city lights, no traffic sounds, just silence and isolation. This option 2 thing, working with you. What would that actually involve? Right now, helping me figure out who wants me dead badly enough to risk an attack in a public venue. Victor joined her at the window. You have an analytical mind. You see patterns. I need someone who can look at my business operations and identify weak points, places where someone might be staging an attack. I'm a waitress, Victor. I don't know anything about criminal enterprises. You know about reading people and situations. That's more valuable than experience. He paused. Plus, whoever sent that assassin knows your face now. They might come after you again just to tie up loose ends. If you're with me, you have protection, resources, a chance to hit back instead of just hiding. Elena turned to face him. And if I choose option 1, new identity and disappear? Then tomorrow morning, we set you up with everything you need. New documents, financial support, a cover story. One of my people will escort you to whatever city you choose and make sure you get settled safely. Victor's tone was neutral, but Elena detected something underneath. Disappointment, maybe. You'll be off my radar and hopefully off theirs. It was tempting. A clean exit from a situation that had spiraled out of control in a matter of hours. She could be in Seattle or Denver or Miami by this time tomorrow, starting fresh again. But Elena had started fresh before. Changed her name at 18, moved across the country, rebuilt herself from nothing. She'd spent a decade being nobody, staying invisible, avoiding complications. And she was tired of running. How long? She asked. How long what? How long until you find out who's after you? Victor considered. Could be days. Could be weeks. This kind of investigation requires patience and careful work. Why? Because if I'm going to turn my life upside down for this, I want to know there's an endpoint. Elena crossed her arms. I'll work with you. Help you figure out who sent the assassin. But once we have that answer and deal with the threat, we're done. I go back to my life. Your apartment's probably compromised by now, Victor pointed out. They'll have searched it. Then I'll find a new apartment, new city if necessary. But I'm not signing up for a permanent position in whatever this is. She gestured around the cabin. I help you solve this specific problem, then I'm out. Victor extended his hand. Deal. You help me identify and neutralize the threat, then you walk away clean. I'll make sure of it. Elena shook his hand. His grip was firm, his palm calloused. The handshake of someone who'd worked with his hands before the expensive suits and private security. Get some rest, Victor said, releasing her hand. Tomorrow we start digging into who wants me dead. Sophia will show you to a bedroom. We've got spare clothes if you need them. Sophia materialized from the hallway as if summoned. This way. The bedroom was simple but comfortable. Queen bed, attached bathroom, a window overlooking the dark woods. Elena set her duffel bag on the bed and sat beside it, suddenly exhausted. There's a security panic button in the nightstand, Sophia said from the doorway. Press it if you hear or see anything concerning. Someone will be outside your door all night. You think they'll find us here? No, but Victor doesn't take chances with assets. I'm not an asset, Elena said. I'm a person who made a really stupid decision at a party. Sophia's expression remained neutral. You saved Victor's life. That makes you valuable, which means people will try to use you or eliminate you. Get used to it. She left before Elena could respond. Elena lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this cabin, Victor was probably coordinating with his security team, reviewing footage from the gala, making calls to contacts in whatever shadowy network he operated within, and she was supposed to sleep. Her phone, still turned off, sat on the nightstand. She wondered if anyone had noticed her absence yet. Her landlord would eventually realize she wasn't coming back. Her boss at the catering company would find someone else to work the wedding tomorrow. 3 years of careful, invisible living gone in one night. Elena closed her eyes and tried not to think about the dark sedan following them through city streets, or the sound of someone picking her lock, or the look in Victor's eyes when he'd said people will try to use you or eliminate you. She'd saved a stranger's life and lost her own in the process. Outside her window, night pressed against the glass like a living thing. Somewhere in that darkness, people were hunting, planning, moving pieces into position for whatever came next. And Elena Cross, who'd spent years avoiding attention, was now at the center of it all. Sleep, when it finally came, was thin and troubled. Morning came too early and wrong. Elena woke to unfamiliar silence. No traffic noise, no neighbors, just the muted sounds of birds and wind through trees. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back and she sat up, heart racing. Safe house, Victor Hale, assassins. Her phone showed 6:40 a.m. She'd slept maybe 4 hours. All of it fractured by dreams of dark sedans and men with guns. Elena pulled on jeans and a sweater from her duffel bag, splashed water on her face in the bathroom, and tried to convince herself this was real. The cabin was already alive with activity. Voices drifted from the main room, Victor's low rumble, Sophia's clipped responses, someone else Elena didn't recognize. She followed the sound and found them gathered around a dining table covered in laptops, printed documents, and coffee cups. Victor looked up when she entered. If he'd slept at all, it didn't show. Same clothes from last night, though he'd lost the jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars. "Coffee's fresh," he said, nodding toward the kitchen. "You eat breakfast?" "Usually." Elena poured herself a cup, black. The caffeine hit her system like an electrical current. "What's all this?" "Security footage from the gala, guest manifests, background checks on anyone who had access to the venue." Victor gestured to the man Elena didn't know. Mid-40s, glasses, the kind of build that suggested he'd been athletic once but had traded it for desk work. "This is Thomas Chen, Sophia's brother. He handles digital forensics for my organization." Thomas gave her a brief nod before returning to his laptop screen. "We've been working since 4 a.m., Victor continued, "trying to identify your dark-suited friend from last night. Got a hit about 20 minutes ago." He turned one of the laptops toward Elena. The screen showed a grainy still image from security footage, a man in a dark suit moving through the crowd at the gala. The angle wasn't great, but Elena recognized him instantly. "That's him," she confirmed. "Same posture, same way of moving." "His name is Dylan Reeves," Thomas said without looking up from his own screen. "Former military, special forces. Discharged 6 years ago under circumstances that remain classified. Since then, he's worked as a private contractor, which is a polite way of saying he kills people for money." Elena studied the image. Dylan Reeves looked ordinary in the photo, just another guest at an upscale party. But she remembered the cold focus in his movements, the predatory certainty. "Who hired him?" she asked. "That's the question," Victor said. "Reeves doesn't advertise his services online. He works through a very selective network of brokers who connect clients with contractors. We're trying to trace backward, but it takes time." Sophia spoke up from across the table. "We pulled all the security footage from the venue. Reeves arrived at 7:15 p.m., 45 minutes before the assassination attempt. He didn't check in at the main entrance, came through the service area with catering staff." "Inside help," Marcus added. He stood near the windows, maintaining his perpetual watch. "Someone on the venue staff gave him access." "We're working on identifying who," Thomas said. "But the catering company hired a lot of temporary workers for the event. Could take days to run down every connection." Elena moved closer to the table, studying the scattered documents. Guest lists, floor plans, employee rosters. It looked like the kind of investigation she'd seen her father conduct 100 times, except this wasn't official law enforcement. This was something else entirely. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. Victor looked at her with something like approval. "I need you to tell me everything you observed last night, every detail, no matter how small. The way Reeves moved, who he looked at, where he positioned himself. Your threat assessment saved my life. Now I need you to reconstruct exactly what you saw." Elena pulled out a chair and sat. The others watched her with varying degrees of interest. She closed her eyes, pulling herself back to the ballroom. "He entered from the east side," she said slowly, "near the bar where you were standing. He didn't look around like someone taking in the venue. He already knew the layout." "Consistent with reconnaissance," Sophia noted. "He moved through clusters of people but didn't engage with anyone. No small talk, no drink orders, just forward momentum." Elena opened her eyes. His hand kept going to his right hip, not his waistband, higher, under his jacket. Whatever he was carrying was in a shoulder rig. Thomas typed rapidly. "Shoulder holster suggests a compact weapon, probably a subcompact 9mm, easy to conceal, reliable at close range." "He tracked you for maybe 90 seconds before making his approach," Elena continued, looking at Victor. "Waited until you were engaged in conversation with those two men. Wanted you distracted." "The Caldwell brothers," Victor said. "Business associates. They were pitching a development deal. Reeves timed his approach for when your back was partially turned. He was maybe 8 feet away when I reached you." Elena paused, remembering the spike of adrenaline, the certainty that violence was seconds away. "After you moved to the terrace, he stopped, didn't pursue. That's what struck me as odd." "Odd how?" Victor asked. "If I'm an assassin and my target moves, I either adapt and follow, or I abort completely. Reeves did neither. He just stood there for maybe 10 seconds, then left through the main entrance. Not rushed, but not casual either." Sophia and Victor exchanged glances. "He was on a clock," Sophia said. "Specific window for the hit. Once that window closed, the mission was scrubbed." "Which means someone was coordinating," Victor added. Reeves wasn't acting alone. He had support, probably outside the venue. When the attempt failed, they extracted him before security could lock down the area. Elena felt a chill run through her. "How many people are we talking about?" "Minimum 3, Thomas said. Reeves inside, a driver for extraction, and someone coordinating communications. Likely more. This kind of operation requires planning and resources. Resources that point to a well-funded organization," Victor said grimly. "Not some street gang or small-time operation. This was professional." Marcus spoke from his position by the window. "We've got company." Everyone's attention snapped to him. Victor was on his feet instantly. "How many?" 2 vehicles, black SUVs, just turned onto the access road. "Maybe 2 minutes out." "Positions," Victor ordered. The room transformed. Sophia and Marcus moved with practiced efficiency, pulling weapons from concealed locations. Thomas closed his laptops and grabbed a go bag from under the table. Victor pulled a handgun from his waistband and checked the chamber. Elena stood frozen, her mind struggling to catch up. "What's happening?" "Either very bad timing or we've been compromised," Victor said. He grabbed her arm, not roughly, but with urgency. "Bedroom. Now. Stay low. Stay quiet. If shooting starts, you get in the bathtub and cover your head." "I have a gun," Elena said. "In my bag. Get it. But do not fire unless someone comes through that bedroom door who isn't one of us. Understood?" Elena nodded and ran for the bedroom. Her hands shook as she dug through her duffel bag and found the Glock. The weight of it felt both familiar and alien, a tool she'd hoped to never need again. She positioned herself in the bathroom doorway where she could see the bedroom entrance. From the main room, she heard low voices coordinating over radios. "Thomas, you're out the back with the data," Victor said. "Sophia, north windows. Marcus, south. I'll take the front door." "ROE?" Sophia asked. "Defensive only unless they present weapons. I don't need a firefight with unknowns." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the bedroom window, she caught a glimpse of the 2 SUVs rolling up the gravel drive. They stopped 30 feet from the cabin, engines running. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened on the lead vehicle. A man stepped out, hands visibly empty and raised slightly. Tall, gray-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. He walked forward slowly, stopping at the base of the porch steps. "Victor Hale!" the man called out. His voice carried authority, tempered with careful diplomacy. "My name is James Garrett. I'm here to talk, not fight. I'm unarmed and my people will remain in the vehicles if you'll give me 5 minutes of your time." Silence from inside the cabin. "I know about last night," Garrett continued. "I know about the attempt on your life at the Westbridge Gala. I know about Dylan Reeves. And I know you've been trying to identify who hired him." He paused. "I have information you need. Information that could save both our lives." More silence. Elena could imagine Victor weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, Victor's voice. "Your people stay in the vehicles. You come to the door slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." Garrett climbed the porch steps with measured movements. The front door opened. Elena couldn't see the exchange from her position, but she heard Victor's next words clearly. "You have 3 minutes. Talk." "May I come inside?" "You may stand in the doorway. Talk." Garrett sighed, but didn't argue. 48 hours ago, someone put a contract on your life. Not through the usual channels. This was private, discreet, very expensive. The broker who facilitated it is someone I've worked with in the past. He contacted me yesterday, concerned. "Concerned about what?" Victor's voice was ice. "About the client. The broker's been in this business for 20 years. He's facilitated contracts on warlords, cartel leaders, corrupt politicians, but this client made him nervous. Wanted very specific parameters for the hit. Public venue, specific time frame, no collateral damage. Then they offered triple the usual rate." "Who was the client?" "He doesn't know. All communication was through encrypted channels, payments in cryptocurrency routed through multiple wallets. But here's what worried him enough to reach out to me. The client knew details about your security protocols, knew which venues you'd be at, who you'd be with, even which of your people would be on duty that night." Elena heard Victor move, probably shifting his position. "You're saying I have an information leak?" "I'm saying someone inside your organization is feeding intelligence to whoever wants you dead." Garrett's voice was steady. "The broker sent me what little digital footprint he could extract from the communications. Metadata, routing patterns, linguistic analysis. I brought it here because despite our history, Victor, I don't benefit from your death. Quite the opposite. Our history is you trying to muscle into my shipping operations 2 years ago." "And failing," Garrett acknowledged, "which taught me a valuable lesson about picking my battles. You and I operate in overlapping spaces, but we're not direct competitors. Your death creates a power vacuum that destabilizes markets we both rely on. I'm here because pragmatism outweighs grudges." A pause. Elena could hear the tension crackling through the silence. "Show me what you have," Victor said finally. Footsteps. Garrett must have been allowed inside. Elena heard papers rustling, laptop keys clicking. Thomas's voice joined the conversation, asking technical questions about data encryption and routing protocols. 10 minutes passed. Elena's legs ached from maintaining her defensive position, but she didn't move. The 2 SUVs remained parked outside, their occupants invisible behind tinted windows. Finally, Victor called out, "Elena, come here." She emerged from the bedroom cautiously, gun held low but ready. The main room looked like a war council. Garrett stood near the table, his hands resting on the surface in clear view. Sophia and Marcus maintained positions that gave them clear firing lines if needed. Thomas was hunched over his laptop, absorbed in whatever data Garrett had provided. Victor gestured Elena closer. "James Garrett, this is Elena Cross. She's the one who warned me at the gala." Garrett's eyebrows rose. "The variable that broke the equation. I'm impressed, Ms. Cross. Dylan Reeves is very good at what he does. Spotting him in a crowded room takes exceptional awareness." "Or paranoia," Elena said flatly. "Often the same thing." Garrett turned back to Victor. "Thomas is confirming what I've told you. The client who hired Reeves has access to information that should be impossible to obtain without inside help. Dates, locations, security rotations, all of it accurate as of 48 hours before the gala." "How many people have that level of access?" Sophia asked. Victor's jaw tightened. "Maybe 10, All of them people I trust with my life. Then one of them is betraying you, Garrett said. And until you identify who, you're vulnerable. Every location you visit, every meeting you take, every movement you make is potentially compromised. Elena watched Victor process this. His expression remained controlled, but she could see the anger simmering underneath. Trust was currency in his world, and someone had just counterfeited it. Why bring this to me? Victor asked Garrett. You could have sat back and let the situation play out. Because whoever hired Reeves didn't stop after the gala failed, Garrett said. According to my broker, the client doubled the contract this morning. They want you dead badly enough to throw serious money at the problem. That level of determination suggests something bigger than a business rivalry or personal grudge. Thomas looked up from his laptop. He's right. The metadata shows communication patterns consistent with a well-funded organization. Multiple handlers, coordinated operations, sophisticated operational security. This isn't one person with a vendetta. This is institutional. Institutional meaning what? Elena asked. Like a government? Possibly. Or a large criminal syndicate. Maybe a corporate entity with black operations capabilities. Thomas gestured at his screen. The digital fingerprint suggests resources that go beyond typical contract killing. Victor moved to the window, staring out at the woods surrounding the cabin. If there's a traitor in my organization, they'll know about this safe house. We need to move. Where? Sophia asked. Somewhere off the grid. Somewhere even my own people don't know about. Victor turned back to face the room. James, I appreciate the information, but I need verification before I trust it completely. Understandable, Garrett said. I'll leave the data with Thomas. He can authenticate it independently. But Victor, time is not your friend here. The longer you wait to act, the more opportunities your enemies have to position their next attempt. I'm aware. Victor's tone left no room for argument. Marcus, escort Mr. Garrett back to his vehicle. Sophia, start evacuation protocol. Thomas, pack everything. We move in 30 minutes. Garrett accepted his dismissal with a slight nod. One more thing. The broker mentioned the client seemed particularly interested in anyone connected to you at the gala. New faces, unexpected variables. If Ms. Cross warned you and they observed it, she's on their radar now. She's already aware of that, Victor said coldly. She's also under my protection, which means any attempt on her life will be treated as an attempt on mine. Something in Victor's voice made it clear the conversation was over. Marcus escorted Garrett outside. Through the window, Elena watched the gray-haired man return to his SUV. Moments later, both vehicles backed down the gravel drive and disappeared into the trees. The cabin exploded into controlled chaos. Sophia and Thomas moved through rooms with practiced efficiency, gathering equipment and wiping surfaces. Victor pulled Elena aside while the others worked. I need you to think very carefully, he said. The past 3 years of your life. Who knew where you lived? Who had your phone number? Anyone you told about working the gala? Elena's mind raced backward. My landlord? My boss at the catering company? A few co-workers I'd share shifts with, but nothing personal. I kept to myself. Boyfriend? Girlfriend? Family? No. No one. The isolation of her carefully constructed life suddenly felt suffocating. I've been alone since I changed my name at 18. Victor studied her face. Changed your name? From what? Elena hesitated. This was the part of her history she'd buried deepest, the reason she'd learned to stay invisible in the first place. But if someone was digging into her background, that old life might resurface. Elena Martinez, she said quietly. My father was Detective Robert Martinez. After he died, I testified at the trial of the man who killed him. The shooter's associates made threats. Police recommended I relocate and change my identity for safety. Did you go through official channels? Witness protection? No, we couldn't afford the restrictions. I did it on my own. New social security number, forged documents, cash payments for everything. I became Elena Cross and left Elena Martinez buried in a cemetery in San Antonio. Victor's expression shifted, something like understanding crossing his features. You've been running for 10 years. I've been surviving for 10 years, Elena corrected. There's a difference. Not much of one. Victor glanced toward the windows where Sophia was conducting a final sweep. If Garrett's right and someone's investigating everyone connected to me, they might dig up your old identity, find out about your father, the trial, everything you've been hiding from. The thought made Elena's stomach twist. They can't. I covered my tracks. Everyone thinks they covered their tracks until someone with enough resources starts digging. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. We need to go. Now. They piled into two vehicles, Elena in the SUV with Victor and Sophia, Thomas and Marcus in the second vehicle with all the equipment. The convoy moved down narrow back roads, avoiding highways and major routes. Where are we going? Elena asked. Property I inherited from my mother, Victor said from the front passenger seat. Small farm about 2 hours north. No electronic trail connecting it to me. Still in her maiden name, taxes paid through a trust. I haven't been there in 5 years. If there's a traitor in my organization, they won't know about it. The landscape shifted as they drove. Fewer buildings, more open farmland, sky stretched wide and gray overhead. Elena watched the scenery blur past, her mind churning through everything that had happened in the last 18 hours. How do you live like this? She asked suddenly, constantly watching for threats, never knowing who to trust. Victor was quiet for a moment. You get used to it. Learn to read people, identify patterns. It's not so different from what you did last night at the gala. That was instinct. What you're describing is paranoia. Paranoia keeps you breathing in my line of work. Victor turned to look at her. Your father was a cop. You must have seen some of this, the way law enforcement has to stay alert, watch for danger. My father carried a gun because his job required it, but he didn't live in safe houses or run from assassins. Elena heard the bitterness in her own voice. He had a normal life. House in the suburbs, neighbors who invited him to barbecues. He coached Little League. Until someone shot him during a traffic stop, Victor said quietly. Normal life doesn't protect you from violence, Elena. It just makes you an easier target. Elena wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. He was right, in a horrible way. Her father's normal life hadn't saved him. All his goodness and dedication and playing by the rules had ended on a roadside with a bullet in his chest. They drove in silence for another hour. The farm appeared gradually, first a mailbox half hidden by overgrown bushes, then a gravel drive winding between fields that had long since gone to seed. The house itself was a modest 2-story structure with peeling paint and a sagging porch. A barn stood behind it, its roof collapsed on one side. Home sweet home, Victor said without enthusiasm. The interior was dusty and sparse, but structurally sound. Sophia and Marcus cleared the building room by room, while Thomas set up his equipment on a kitchen table that had probably been there since the 70s. Victor moved through the space like a ghost revisiting old memories. My mother grew corn and soybeans, he said, running his hand along a doorframe. Made enough to get by. She died when I was 26. Lung cancer. Never smoked a day in her life. Elena watched him, seeing something beneath the controlled exterior. You miss her. Every day. Victor pulled his hand back. She's the reason I got into this life, actually. Medical bills bankrupted us. I needed money fast and legal work wasn't going to cut it. Started moving product for a local dealer, learned the business from the bottom up. That's how you justify it? Your mother's medical bills? I don't justify anything, Victor said sharply. I made choices based on circumstances, same as you did when you changed your name and disappeared. We both did what we had to do to survive. Before Elena could respond, Thomas called out from the kitchen. Victor, you need to see this. They gathered around Thomas's laptop. He'd pulled up files from the data Garrett had provided, communication logs, transaction records, routing information. The metadata James gave us checks out, Thomas said. I cross-referenced it with known patterns from professional contractors. This is legitimate. But there's something else. He pulled up a series of timestamps. The client who hired Reeves started their initial inquiries 6 weeks ago. Long before the gala was even scheduled. They weren't targeting a specific event. They were targeting you, Victor, and waiting for the right opportunity. 6 weeks, Sophia murmured. That's a long surveillance window. It gets worse. Thomas highlighted a section of code. The communication patterns show coordination with at least 3 other simultaneous operations. Whoever hired Reeves isn't just coming after Victor. They're running multiple plays at once. Victor leaned closer to the screen. What kind of operations? Can't tell from this data alone. But the resource allocation suggests significant investment. We're talking millions of dollars being moved through shell companies and cryptocurrency wallets. Elena felt the pieces shifting in her mind, patterns emerging from chaos. "It's not about you specifically," she said slowly. Everyone looked at her. "What do you mean?" Victor asked. "You said it yourself. You have enemies. People who want you dead for business reasons, personal grudges, whatever. But this?" Elena gestured at the laptop screen. "This level of planning and resources, they're not trying to kill you because you're Victor Hale. They're trying to kill you because you're in the way of something bigger." Silence fell over the kitchen. Thomas broke it first. "She's right. This has all the hallmarks of an elimination operation. Remove obstacles to clear the path for a larger objective." "What objective?" Sophia asked. "That's what we need to figure out," Victor said. His phone buzzed again. He checked it, and his expression went from concerned to alarmed. "We have a bigger problem. One of my shipping warehouses just exploded. 3 dead, 7 injured." The words hung in the air like smoke. "When?" Marcus demanded. 20 minutes ago. Authorities are calling it an industrial accident, but my foreman says it was deliberate. Someone planted charges in the storage area where we keep—" Victor stopped himself, glancing at Elena. "Where you keep illegal shipments," Elena finished for him. "I'm not naive, Victor. I know what you do." He nodded slowly. "Charges were placed specifically to destroy paperwork and inventory records. Whoever did this wanted to erase evidence of what was moving through that facility. Or create chaos while they move something else," Thomas suggested. "Classic misdirection." Elena's mind was spinning now, connections forming faster than she could articulate them. "What else do you have scheduled? Other shipments, meetings, anything time-sensitive in the next few days?" Victor pulled out his phone and scrolled through what appeared to be a heavily encrypted calendar. 3 container shipments coming through the port tomorrow. 2 business meetings later this week. A transfer of assets to a facility in— He stopped. "Wait." "What?" Sophia pressed. "There's a cargo manifest I approved 2 weeks ago. Special request from a client I've worked with for years. They wanted expedited handling through customs for what they listed as industrial equipment." "What kind of equipment?" Thomas asked. "Hydraulic machinery. Boring stuff. Nothing that raised flags. But the shipping route was unusual, coming from Eastern Europe through 3 different ports before arriving here. I charged them premium rates for the complexity." Elena felt ice forming in her veins. "When does it arrive?" Victor checked his phone. "The final container clears customs tomorrow afternoon. It's scheduled for delivery to a warehouse in the industrial district tomorrow night." "Cancel it," Elena said immediately. "I can't. The container's already in transit through customs. Canceling now would trigger an investigation, and I can't afford that kind of scrutiny." "Then inspect it," Sophia suggested, "before it gets delivered. See what's really inside." Victor was already nodding. "Thomas, can you pull the manifest details? I want to know everything about this shipment. Origin point, routing history, customs declarations, all of it." While Thomas worked, Elena moved to the window. Outside, afternoon light filtered through clouds, painting the overgrown fields in shades of gray and gold. Somewhere out there, people were coordinating attacks, moving pieces on a board she was only beginning to understand. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd turned it back on during the drive, hoping for— what? A message from her old life? Some proof that normalcy still existed? The text was from an unknown number. "We know who you are, Elena Martinez. We know what you saw. Walk away now or join Victor Hale in the ground." Her hands started shaking. She showed the message to Victor without saying a word. His face went hard. "Thomas, trace that number, now." "Already on it." Thomas's fingers flew across his keyboard. Burner phone, bounced through multiple towers. Whoever sent it knows what they're doing. Elena stared at the message. They'd used her real name. Elena Martinez, buried for a decade, resurrected by someone who dug deep enough to unearth her past. "They found me," she whispered. "After all these years, all the hiding, they found me." Victor put a hand on her shoulder. "And now they've shown their hand. They're trying to scare you off, which means they see you as a threat." "I'm not a threat. I'm a waitress who got lucky spotting an assassin." "You're someone who sees patterns," Victor corrected. "Someone analytical enough to piece together what's happening here. That makes you dangerous to them." "Or it makes me expendable," Elena countered. "They offered me a way out. Maybe I should take it." Do you really think they'd let you walk away after this? Victor's voice was gentle but firm. You know too much. You've seen too much. The only way you stay safe is if we finish this. Elena wanted to scream, wanted to throw her phone against the wall, and pretend the last 24 hours had been a nightmare she could wake up from. Instead, she took a shaky breath and forced herself to think. The shipment, she said. That's the key. Whatever they're moving through your warehouse, that's what this is about. The assassination attempt, the warehouse explosion, all of it. They're clearing obstacles to get something into the country. Something worth killing for, Sophia added. Something worth millions of dollars in coordination and planning, Thomas said, still working on his laptop. I'm cross-referencing the shipping routes with known smuggling patterns. Give me 20 minutes. Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then his expression changed completely. When? Where? A pause. I'll be there in 2 hours. He ended the call and looked at Marcus. That was my contact at the port. Customs flagged the container. They're opening it for inspection in 90 minutes. If we leave now, we can be there to see what's inside. Could be a trap, Sophia warned. Could be, Victor agreed. But if that container holds the answer to who's trying to kill me and why, I need to know. Elena, you stay here with Thomas. Sophia and Marcus come with me. No, Elena said. Victor raised an eyebrow. No? You said I see patterns, that I'm analytical. You need me there in case there's something everyone else misses. Elena met his gaze steadily despite the fear coursing through her. I'm already a target. Might as well make it worth something. For a long moment, Victor studied her. Then he nodded. All right, but you stay back and you follow orders. Things go wrong, you run. Understood? Understood. They left Thomas at the farmhouse with instructions to keep digging into the digital trail. The drive to the port took 90 minutes through afternoon traffic, the SUV cutting through lanes with barely controlled urgency. Elena watched the city approach, cranes and shipping containers stacked like building blocks against a dimming sky. The Port Authority complex sprawled across acres of concrete and steel, a maze of warehouses and loading docks. Victor's contact met them at a side gate, a tired-looking customs inspector named Rodriguez, who clearly wanted this meeting over with quickly. Containers in Bay 7, Rodriguez said, barely glancing at Elena and the others. We pulled it for random inspection, but found some irregularities in the manifest. Declared weight doesn't match actual weight. Declared contents don't match the X-ray scan. What does the scan show? Victor asked. That's the thing. X-ray can't penetrate whatever's inside. The whole container is lined with lead shielding. Elena felt her pulse spike. Lead shielding? For industrial equipment? Rodriguez shook his head. That's why we're opening it. Follow me. They walked through the port complex, past stacks of containers emblazoned with logos from shipping companies around the world. Bay 7 was a secure area cordoned off with barriers and guards. The container in question sat on a flatbed truck, its doors sealed with official customs tape. We're opening it now, Rodriguez said. You get 5 minutes to look, then I need you gone. If there's anything illegal inside, this becomes a federal matter and you were never here. Clear? Clear, Victor said. Rodriguez signaled to his team. 2 workers moved forward with bolt cutters and heavy-duty tools. The customs seals broke with sharp cracks. The container doors swung open with a metallic groan. Darkness inside. Rodriguez directed a floodlight into the interior. What the light revealed made Elena's blood run cold. Rows of metal crates, military-grade containers with Cyrillic markings, stenciled warnings in Russian, and beneath the dust and shipping grime, one word stood out in English. Radioactive. The word hung in the floodlit container like a curse. Rodriguez took an involuntary step backward, his hand moving toward his radio. Victor's expression went absolutely blank. The kind of empty face Elena had learned meant his mind was racing through possibilities faster than most people could breathe. Everybody back, Rodriguez said, his voice tight. Now, we need hazmat protocols. Wait! Elena stepped forward before she could talk herself out of it. Her eyes tracked across the metal crates, counting, measuring distances, noting the stenciled markings. Those crates are too small for what radioactive would actually mean. Rodriguez stared at her. Lady, I don't care how small they are. That warning means... It means someone wanted customs to find exactly what you found. Elena moved closer, ignoring the protest behind her. Her father had trained her to read crime scenes, to look past the obvious to what didn't fit. The lead shielding, the Cyrillic markings, the radioactive warning. It's theater. Theater that could kill us, Sophia said sharply. Or theater designed to trigger exactly this response. Panic, evacuation, federal involvement. Elena turned to Rodriguez. Do you have a Geiger counter? In the inspection kit, but get it. If there's actual radiation, we'll know in 30 seconds and I'll be the first one running. Rodriguez hesitated, then barked orders at one of his team. A minute later, someone handed over a yellow handheld device. Elena took it, her hand steadier than she felt, and approached the nearest crate. The Geiger counter's clicks remained steady and low. Background radiation, nothing more. It's clean, she said. These crates aren't radioactive. Someone just wanted you to think they were. Victor moved to her side, examining the crates more closely. The warnings are fresh, stenciled recently, probably during transit. The original markings underneath are different. He was right. Beneath the stark radioactive symbols, Elena could see older paint, faded industrial codes, and shipping information. Someone repackaged these, Victor said quietly. Took whatever was originally inside, replaced it with something else, added the warnings. Why? Marcus asked from his position near the container doors. Why go through that trouble? Elena's mind was clicking through possibilities, discarding what didn't fit. Because when customs finds lead-shielded containers marked radioactive coming from Eastern Europe, what happens? Federal investigation, Rodriguez said. FBI, probably Homeland Security. The whole thing gets pulled into criminal proceedings that take months to resolve. Months during which the container sits in evidence lockup, Elena continued. And while everyone's focused on this one container with fake radioactive material, what's slipping through in the real shipment? The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush them. Victor pulled out his phone and called Thomas. I need you to pull every shipment that cleared customs in the last 48 hours. Focus on anything that came through the same port, similar routing patterns, anything that might be connected to this manifest. Nate. He listened for a moment, his expression darkening. How many? Christ. Yeah, send me everything. Victor ended the call and looked at Elena. 3 other containers cleared customs yesterday. Same origin point, different shipping companies, all declared as industrial equipment. They're already in transit to delivery locations across the city. Where? Sophia demanded. Victor scrolled through his phone. 1 to a warehouse in the industrial district, 1 to a freight terminal near the airport, the 3rd to a storage facility in the port area, less than a mile from here. Rodriguez was on his radio now, his voice urgent as he reported the situation to his superiors. Elena could hear the controlled chaos beginning, more inspectors being called in, federal agencies being notified, the machinery of official response grinding into motion. We need to leave, Marcus said. Before this becomes a circus we can't walk away from. Agreed. Victor turned to Rodriguez. You never saw us here. We were never part of this inspection. Rodriguez looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Victor's tone, or maybe the cash Victor pressed into his hand, changed his mind. I've got maybe 10 minutes before my supervisor arrives. After that, I can't help you. They moved quickly back through the port complex. Elena's mind was still processing what they'd discovered. Someone had created an elaborate decoy, complete with lead shielding and radioactive warnings, knowing it would be flagged by customs. The question was what they were hiding in the other containers. Back in the SUV, Victor was already coordinating with Thomas. Pull up locations for those 3 containers. I want to know exactly where they are right now. Thomas's voice came through the speaker, tense with focus. First container was delivered to Northside Industrial Park 2 hours ago. It's in a warehouse registered to a shell company I'm still tracing. Second container is still in transit to the airport freight terminal, ETA 40 minutes. Third container arrived at Bayside Storage 30 minutes ago. Bayside is closest, Sophia said, already pulling up a map on her phone. 8 minutes from our current position. Victor's jaw tightened. Marcus, take us to Bayside. Elena, I want you to stay in the vehicle when we arrive. Whatever's in those containers is worth killing for, which means the people protecting them won't hesitate to shoot. Elena finished. I know, but I'm still coming. You need someone watching patterns, remember? Watching from a safe distance, Victor insisted. This isn't negotiable. The drive to Bayside Storage took 7 minutes through evening traffic. The facility sprawled across several acres of concrete and corrugated metal, rows of storage units behind chain-link fencing, the kind of place where people kept belongings they didn't want but couldn't throw away. Marcus parked the SUV a block away, in the lot of a closed auto body shop. Through the fence line, they could see the storage facility's main building and the maze of units beyond. There, Sophia said, pointing. A semi-truck was backed up to a loading dock near the rear of the property. The container on its flatbed matched the dimensions of the ones Victor had described. 2 men stood near the truck, both with the alert posture of hired security. 2 guards visible, Marcus observed, probably more inside. This isn't some quick drop-off. They're unloading that container here. Victor pulled out a pair of binoculars and studied the scene. The storage unit they're using is in the back corner, isolated from the main facility, minimal sightlines from the street. Perfect place for something you don't want witnessed, Elena said quietly. Victor lowered the binoculars and looked at her. I need you to tell me what you see, not what you think you see, what the pattern tells you. Elena took the binoculars and studied the scene. 2 guards, both armed based on the way their jackets hung. The truck positioned for quick access, but also creating a visual barrier from the street. The storage unit itself had been modified. She could see new locks, reinforced doors, possibly additional ventilation based on the equipment on the roof. They're not planning to move whatever's inside, she said slowly. Not immediately. That storage unit has been upgraded for long-term containment, and the guards aren't watching the container. They're watching the access roads. They're expecting company, but not yet. This is a staging area. Staging for what? Sophia asked. I don't know, but whatever they're planning requires time and preparation. Elena handed back the binoculars. The container has been here 30 minutes. If they were just transferring contents to vehicles and leaving, they'd be done by now. Instead, they're setting up infrastructure. Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it and swore softly. Thomas just traced the shell company that owns the warehouse in the industrial district. It's registered to an LLC that's connected to 3 other properties across the city, all purchased in the last 6 months, all in strategic locations near transportation hubs. Infrastructure, Elena repeated. They're not smuggling something into the country for a one-time sale. They're building a distribution network. The implications settled over them like concrete. Distribution meant ongoing operations. It meant whatever was in those containers was just the beginning. We need to see inside that storage unit, Victor said. Marcus, Sophia, I want options for approach. Elena stays here with a radio. If anything goes wrong, you call Thomas and get out. I should call the police, Elena said, even though she knew how it would sound. This is bigger than us. If they're building some kind of distribution network for what? Weapons? Drugs? Whatever it is, this needs official response. Victor turned to face her fully. And tell them what? That I illegally inspected a customs container and found 3 others connected to it that I'm now surveilling without a warrant? That'll go well. People could die, Victor. People are already dead. My warehouse workers, the assassins coming after us. Whoever gets in the way of whatever this is. His voice was hard, but not cruel. I know you want to do the right thing, but the right thing in my world isn't a phone call to authorities who will take weeks to move while these people execute their plan. So, what's your version of the right thing? Elena challenged. Breaking into that storage unit and hoping you don't get killed? Gathering intelligence, finding out what we're dealing with, then deciding what to do with that information. Victor glanced at Sophia and Marcus. But Elena's right about one thing. This is bigger than a business rivalry. We need to know what's in those containers before we make our next move. Marcus was studying the facility through his own binoculars. There's a service entrance on the east side. Looks like it leads to the utility area. We could bypass the main gate, approach from the blind side. Cameras? Sophia asked. 4 visible positions. Old system, probably recording, but not monitored in real time. If we move fast and stay low, we can reach the storage unit without triggering active response. Victor nodded. Sophia, you're with me. Marcus, you maintain position here with Elena. If we're not back in 20 minutes, you extract and regroup at the farmhouse. Victor, Elena started. 20 minutes, he repeated. I know what I'm doing. Victor and Sophia moved with the kind of practiced silence that came from too many situations exactly like this one. They disappeared into the evening shadows, heading for the service entrance Marcus had identified. Elena watched through the binoculars, her heart hammering against her ribs. First time? Marcus asked quietly. First time what? Watching someone walk into danger instead of staying safe yourself. Elena lowered the binoculars and looked at him. How did you know? You've got that look, like you want to jump out of this vehicle and follow them, but you know that'd make things worse, so you're sitting here feeling useless. Marcus's voice was matter-of-fact. I was military before I worked for Victor. Spent a lot of time watching people I cared about head into situations I couldn't control. It never gets easier. You trust him, Victor? With my life, he's put himself between me and bullets more than once. Marcus gestured toward the storage facility. Whatever he's built his fortune on, whatever gray areas he operates in, he's loyal to his people. That counts for something. Elena wanted to ask more, but movement caught her attention. Victor and Sophia had reached the storage unit. They were working on the lock with tools Elena couldn't quite make out from this distance. The two guards remained at their posts near the truck, oblivious. They're in, Marcus said, watching through his own binoculars. Timer starts now. The next 15 minutes felt like hours. Elena watched the guards, looking for any sign they'd noticed the intrusion. Her radio remained silent. The evening darkened around them, streetlights flickering to life. At the 18-minute mark, Victor and Sophia emerged from the storage unit. They moved quickly, but didn't run. The controlled urgency of people who'd found something important but didn't want to attract attention. They disappeared back the way they'd come. 5 minutes later, they climbed into the SUV. Victor's face was pale, his expression grim in a way that made Elena's stomach clench. Drive, he told Marcus. Back to the farmhouse. Now. Marcus didn't ask questions, just started the engine and pulled onto the street. They were 3 blocks away before Victor spoke again. The container was full of components, he said quietly. Detonators, timers, chemical compounds stored in reinforced containers. Everything you'd need to build multiple large-scale explosive devices. Sophia's voice was tight. Enough material for at least 20 devices, maybe more. Elena felt the world tilt. Bombs. They're smuggling bomb-making materials. Not just materials. Assembled components. Professional-grade military specification. Someone with serious expertise packed those containers. Victor pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. I photographed everything. Serial numbers, chemical labels, assembly instructions. Thomas can cross-reference with databases, try to trace origins. We have to tell someone, Elena said. FBI, Homeland Security, someone. If there are enough components for 20 bombs, I know. Victor's voice was strained. But we need more information first. Who's behind this? What their targets are? When they're planning to execute? If we alert authorities now with just photographs and suspicion, these people will scatter. The materials will disappear. We'll lose our chance to stop this completely. And if we wait too long, people die, Elena countered. Maybe thousands of people, if they're targeting populated areas. The SUV filled with tense silence. Marcus navigated through traffic with mechanical precision. Sophia was on her phone, typing messages to Thomas with rapid-fire efficiency. There's a middle path, Victor said finally. We gather everything we can in the next 12 hours. Locations, identities, timing. Then we hand it all to the authorities with enough evidence to trigger immediate action. They can't ignore hard intel on active terrorist infrastructure. 12 hours, Elena repeated. What if they move the materials before then? We'll have eyes on both locations. The warehouse in the industrial district and the freight terminal near the airport. If they try to move anything, we'll know. Victor looked at her. This isn't how I wanted this to go. But we're in it now, all of us. And the only way out is through. The drive back to the farmhouse took over an hour. Elena stared out the window, watching the city lights give way to rural darkness. Somewhere in that urban sprawl, people were assembling bombs, planning attacks, moving toward an objective that would leave devastation in its wake. And she was caught in the middle of it because she'd whispered a warning at a party. Thomas met them at the farmhouse door, his laptop open and streaming data across the screen. I got your photos, running everything through military and industrial databases now, but Victor, we've got another problem. What now? Victor's voice was exhausted. James Garrett called, said he has new information about the broker who facilitated Dylan Reeves's contract. Wants to meet tonight. It's a trap, Sophia said immediately. Maybe, Thomas agreed. Or maybe Garrett's realized this situation is more serious than he thought. Either way, he says if you don't meet him by midnight, he's taking what he knows to federal authorities. Victor checked his watch. Where does he want to meet? Neutral ground, the old Riverside Park Marina. Public enough that neither side can pull anything without witnesses, isolated enough for private conversation. Elena watched Victor's face, seeing the calculations happening behind his eyes. You're actually considering this. Garrett has resources I don't, connections in places I can't reach. If he's genuinely offering information that helps us understand who's behind this operation, I need to hear it. Victor looked at Thomas. What else did he say? That the broker reached out to him again. The client who hired Reeves has apparently expanded their contract, not just targeting you anymore. They've put bounties on everyone connected to you in the last 48 hours. The implication hung in the air. Elena felt ice forming in her veins. Everyone connected to him, including me. Including all of us, Thomas said. Sophia, Marcus, me, Elena, we're all targets now. Garrett says the client is cleaning house, eliminating anyone who might have information about their operation. How much is the bounty? Marcus asked. 50,000 per person. Higher for Victor. They've gone up to $250,000 for him. Thomas's expression was grim. That kind of money will bring every contractor within 1,000 miles. We're about to have serious problems. Victor moved to the window, staring out into the darkness beyond. Then we move faster than they expect. Thomas, how long until you can trace the origins of those bomb components? I've got matches on 3 of the serial numbers already. They're from a military depot in Moldova that reported a theft 8 months ago. Interpol flagged it, but couldn't recover the materials. Thomas pulled up files on his screen. The other components are harder to trace. Some look like they were manufactured in commercial facilities, perfectly legal, until someone assembled them into explosives. Who has the expertise to coordinate something like this? Elena asked. Stealing military materials, smuggling them across international borders, building distribution networks in multiple cities? This isn't amateur hour. No, it's not, Victor agreed. This is state-level resources or major criminal syndicate, possibly both working together. Sophia's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up sharply. We've got movement at the airport freight terminal. The second container is being unloaded right now. Victor turned from the window. How many people? Unknown. Marcus's contact at the terminal says there's a crew of at least 6, maybe more. They're moving fast like they're on a schedule. Because they are, Elena said, the pieces falling into place in her mind. They know customs flagged the decoy container. They know it's only a matter of time before someone connects the dots to the other shipments. They're accelerating their timeline. Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened for a moment, then his face went absolutely still. When? Where? A pause. I'll be there. He ended the call and looked at the group. That was one of my sources in the police department. There's been an incident at the warehouse in the industrial district. Fire department responded to reports of a chemical smell. They found 2 bodies inside, both shot execution style. The warehouse is being treated as a crime scene. Someone's eliminating witnesses, Marcus said, tying up loose ends. Or sending a message, Sophia added, showing they're willing to kill anyone who gets in their way. Elena's mind was racing through implications. If they're killing people at the warehouse, they've either already moved what was in the first container or they're about to. We need to know which. Thomas, pull up everything you can on that warehouse, Victor ordered. Building plans, tenant history, recent activity. I want to know if there's another location connected to it. While Thomas worked, Elena moved to stand beside Victor at the window. Outside, the old farm sat quiet and dark, surrounded by fields that stretched into shadows. It felt surreal, discussing bombs and executions in a kitchen that probably once hosted family dinners and birthday parties. Your mother would hate what you've become, Elena said quietly. Victor didn't look at her. She'd hate what I've done, but I think she'd understand why I did it. She was practical that way. There's practical and then there's this. Elena gestured vaguely at the controlled chaos around them. You could walk away. Right now. Call the FBI, give them everything we know, disappear before the bounties bring killers to your door. Could I? Victor turned to face her. Because from where I stand, walking away means leaving bomb-making materials in the hands of people who've already killed for them. Means letting whatever attack they're planning move forward. Means all those people at the gala, all the civilians in whatever target zone they've chosen, they're just collateral damage. That's not your responsibility. Maybe not, but it became my responsibility when I built a shipping network that someone hijacked for this. His voice carried weight. I've spent years moving products through gray areas, telling myself it was just business. Weapons, drugs, illegal goods, none of it mattered as long as I got paid. But this is different. This is mass casualties. And if my infrastructure helped make it possible, I own part of that. Elena studied his face, seeing something beneath the criminal exterior. You're trying to make up for it. I'm trying to stop it. Whether that makes up for anything is someone else's judgment to make. Thomas called out from the kitchen table. Got something. The warehouse is owned by the same shell company that purchased 3 other properties in the last year. All of them are near major gathering points, shopping centers, transit hubs, entertainment districts. Target locations, Sophia said grimly. They're not building a distribution network for illegal sales. They're staging explosives near high-casualty zones. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Elena felt her breath catch. How soon? When are they planning to execute? Unknown, Thomas said. But the timeline suggests urgency. All these properties were acquired within months of each other. The containers arrived within days. Someone spent serious time and money setting this up, which means they're close to deployment. Victor's phone buzzed again. He checked it and swore viciously. James Garrett just moved up the meeting. He wants to meet in 1 hour, not midnight. Says the situation has escalated and he has information that can't wait. Definitely a trap, Marcus said. Probably, Victor agreed. But if Garrett knows something about the timeline or the targets, I need to hear it. Sophia, Marcus, you're with me. Thomas, you stay here and keep working the data. Elena. I'm coming, Elena said before he could finish. Like hell you are. This is already dangerous enough without what? Your waitress getting in the way? Elena's voice was sharp. I'm already a target, Victor. Already marked for death by people who think I know too much. At least if I'm with you, I've got protection. And you need someone watching for patterns, remember? Someone who sees what others miss? Victor looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. Fine, but you stay in the vehicle. You don't approach the meeting until I signal it's safe, and if shooting starts, you get out. Understood? Understood. They left Thomas at the farmhouse with instructions to call for backup if he didn't hear from them within 2 hours. The drive to Riverside Park took 40 minutes through nearly empty streets. The park itself was a sprawling recreational area along the waterfront, walking paths, picnic areas, and a marina that had seen better days. The meeting location was at the far end of the marina, where older boats sat in forgotten slips and streetlights had long since burned out. Victor parked the SUV 100 yards away, positioned for quick exit if necessary. James Garrett's vehicle was already there, the same black SUV from the farmhouse, parked with its nose facing the exit route. Smart positioning. A second vehicle sat nearby, engine running. He brought backup, Sophia observed. So did we, Victor replied. He turned to Elena. Radio stays on. You hear anything that sounds wrong, you tell Marcus to extract. Don't wait for confirmation, don't hesitate, just go. Elena nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. She watched Victor, Sophia, and Marcus approach the meeting point, 3 shadows moving through darkness toward uncertain conversation. Garrett stepped out of his SUV when they were 20 feet away. He looked tired under the poor lighting, his expensive suit rumpled. 2 other men emerged from the second vehicle, more muscle, probably armed. Victor, Garrett called out, thank you for coming. I know this looks suspicious, but I needed to meet urgently. So talk, Victor said. What's worth moving up our meeting? The broker contacted me 2 hours ago, said the client who hired Reeves has accelerated their timeline. Whatever they're planning, it's happening within the next 24 hours. Elena felt her heart skip. Through the radio, she heard Victor's sharp intake of breath. 24 hours, Victor repeated. You're sure? The broker's sure. He's spooked, Victor. 30 years in this business, and he's never seen anything like this. The client's moving massive resources, coordinating multiple teams, eliminating loose ends with extreme prejudice. Garrett stepped closer. He also said the client specifically mentioned collateral damage projections in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands depending on execution. Where? Victor demanded. What's the target? That's what I'm trying to find out. But here's what I do know. The client has been moving personnel and equipment into position across the city for weeks. They've got safe houses, staging areas, and what sounds like coordinated strike teams. This isn't a single bombing. It's multiple simultaneous attacks designed to maximize casualties and chaos. Elena's hands were shaking. She keyed the radio. Victor, this is way beyond us. We need to call this in right now. Through the radio, she heard Victor respond. Agreed, but we need locations first. James, does your broker have any specifics? Addresses, target zones, anything concrete? He's working on it. But Victor, there's something else. Garrett's tone changed, became more urgent. The client knows you're investigating. They know about the farmhouse, about your team, about everyone involved. My broker says they've accelerated the timeline specifically because they believe you're close to exposing them. Then they're right, Victor said. We found their shipments. We know what they're planning. All we need is movement from Garrett's second vehicle. The door opened and someone else stepped out. A woman, mid-30s, wearing tactical gear. She moved with military precision toward the meeting. Something about her posture triggered Elena's instincts. The way she walked, the angle of her approach. Elena grabbed the binoculars for a closer look. The woman's hand was moving inside her jacket. Gun! Elena screamed into the radio. Right side, second vehicle! She's drawing! Everything happened in compressed seconds. Sophia reacted first, shoving Victor sideways as the woman's weapon cleared her jacket. Marcus was already returning fire, his shots precise and controlled. Garrett dove for cover behind his SUV. Elena watched in horror as chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Glass shattered. Someone was screaming. She couldn't tell who. Then Marcus was running back toward their SUV, half carrying Victor, whose left shoulder was dark with blood. Sophia provided covering fire, moving backward in controlled retreat. Start the engine, Marcus shouted. Elena scrambled to the driver's seat, her hands fumbling for the keys. The engine roared to life just as Marcus yanked open the rear door and practically threw Victor inside. Sophia dove in after them. Drive, Marcus commanded, climbing into the passenger seat. Now! Elena stomped the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, tires screaming as she navigated toward the exit. Behind them, gunfire continued. Garrett's people trading shots with whoever had attacked them. How bad? Sophia was asking Victor, her hands pressing against his shoulder. Through and through, Victor managed through clenched teeth. Missed the bone. I'm okay. You're bleeding like hell, Sophia countered. We need to get you medical attention. No hospitals, Victor said. Too many questions. Call Thomas. Tell him to prep the medical supplies at the farmhouse. Elena drove with her entire body rigid, adrenaline singing through every nerve. Was that a setup? Did Garrett ambush us? I don't think so, Marcus said, scanning behind them for pursuit. That woman wasn't with Garrett. She arrived separately. My guess is she was tracking him, waiting for him to lead her to us. The bounty, Sophia said grimly. $250,000 is enough to make professionals take risks. They reached the highway, and Elena merged into sparse traffic, forcing herself to maintain normal speed despite every instinct screaming to run. Beside her, Marcus was on the phone with Thomas, explaining the situation in clipped terms. In the back seat, Victor was still conscious but pale. Sophia had improvised a pressure bandage from her jacket, but blood was soaking through. Stay with me, Sophia told him. We're 20 minutes out. You can make it 20 minutes. Not my first gunshot wound, Victor said, but his voice lacked strength. Just drive fast, Elena, and watch for tails. Elena checked the mirrors obsessively, looking for vehicles that matched their speed or made the same turns. Nothing obvious, but that didn't mean they were safe. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Then a text message appeared on her screen. You should have walked away, Elena Martinez. Now you die with him. Her hands tightened on the wheel. They're tracking my phone. They know we're moving. Throw it out the window, Marcus ordered. Now! Elena rolled down the window and hurled her phone onto the highway. It shattered against the asphalt, pieces scattering. Mine too, Sophia said, doing the same with hers. Marcus? Already ditched it back at the marina. Marcus pulled out a different phone from his pocket. A burner model. This one's clean. Only Thomas has the number. The farmhouse appeared after what felt like hours, but was actually 18 minutes. Thomas had the door open before they'd even parked. Medical supplies spread across the kitchen table. Between the three of them, they got Victor inside and onto the table. Thomas worked with practiced efficiency, cutting away Victor's shirt to expose the wound. Clean through, Thomas confirmed. Lot of blood, but no major arteries hit. You're lucky. Lucky, Victor repeated weakly. Sure, that's what this is. While Thomas cleaned and bandaged the wound, Elena stood by the window watching the driveway. Her heart was still racing, her mind replaying the ambush in fractured images, the woman drawing her weapon, muzzle flashes in darkness, Victor's blood on the seat. Elena, Victor called out, come here. She turned from the window. Victor was sitting up now, his shoulder wrapped in clean bandages. Color was returning to his face. You saved my life again, he said. That's twice now. I saw her moving wrong, Elena replied. Just pattern recognition. Pattern recognition that kept me from taking a bullet to the head instead of the shoulder. Victor's voice was serious. I owe you. You don't owe me anything. I'm just trying to stay alive long enough to see this through. Thomas cleared his throat. We need to talk about next steps. We've got maybe 12 hours before these people deploy their explosives. The ambush at the marina proves they're actively hunting us, and we still don't have concrete locations for all their target zones. Then we make them tell us, Victor said, standing up carefully. Those containers are our best lead. Sophia. Marcus. I want surveillance on the freight terminal and whatever's left of the warehouse. Anyone who approaches those locations, we identify and track them. That's not enough, Elena said quietly. Everyone looked at her. Surveillance takes time we don't have. If they're executing in 12 hours, tracking people back to safe houses won't give us locations fast enough. What are you suggesting? Victor asked. Elena moved to Thomas's laptop and pulled up the map showing the shell company's properties. 4 locations scattered across the city, each near population centers. They chose these sites deliberately, maximum impact, high visibility. If we can identify the pattern in their target selection, we might be able to predict where they'll strike. Thomas joined her at the laptop. Shopping centers, transit hubs, entertainment districts. But there are dozens of locations in each category. We can't cover them all. No, but we can narrow it down. Elena's mind was working through possibilities, seeing connections. They've staged 4 locations, probably 1 bomb per location, maybe 2. That suggests coordinated strikes designed to create maximum chaos, first responders rushing to one scene while others detonate. Classic terror tactics, Sophia said. Hit multiple targets simultaneously to overwhelm emergency response. Right. So which locations would create the most chaos? Elena studied the map. They need visibility for maximum psychological impact. They need crowds for high casualties, and they need timing that catches the most people. Rush hour, Marcus suggested. Morning commute, everyone packed into trains and buses. Or evening, Victor added. Shopping centers and entertainment venues are busiest between 6 and 9 p.m. Elena shook her head. They're accelerating their timeline because they think we're close to stopping them. They won't wait for optimal conditions. They'll execute as soon as they're ready. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. Then we have even less time than we thought, Thomas said quietly. Elena stared at the map, willing the pattern to reveal itself. 4 locations, 4 potential bombs, thousands of potential victims. Somewhere in the data was an answer, a connection that would make everything clear. Her eyes caught on something, a notation Thomas had made about property purchase dates. All 4 locations had been acquired within a 3-week window, 6 months ago. Almost like someone had a specific deadline they were working toward. Thomas, what's significant about 6 months from now? She asked suddenly. He pulled up a calendar. End of the fiscal year for most businesses. Some elections coming up at the state level. Annual conference season starts. Why? Because they've been planning this for months, which means the target date was probably set long before they even acquired these properties. Something significant enough that they built an entire operation around it. Victor moved to look over her shoulder at the calendar. There's a major economic summit scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. International delegates, corporate leaders, media coverage. It's been in the news for weeks. Where's it being held? Elena asked, already dreading the answer. Thomas typed rapidly. Harborview Convention Center, downtown waterfront district. Expected attendance over 5,000 people. The map of shell company properties stared back at them. One of the locations was less than 3 blocks from Harborview Convention Center. That's their primary target, Elena said, certainty settling over her like ice. The others are secondary strikes designed to create chaos and overwhelm response. But the convention center, that's where they want maximum casualties and maximum political impact. Victor's expression was grim. Then that's where we need to stop them. The weight of that realization settled over the farmhouse kitchen like a physical presence. 5,000 people packed into a convention center, international delegates, wall-to-wall media coverage, the kind of target that would dominate headlines for months and reshape how an entire nation thought about security. We call the FBI right now, Elena said, reaching for Thomas's phone. Anonymous tip, everything we know. Let them evacuate the center and sweep for explosives. Victor caught her wrist, not roughly but firmly. And tell them what exactly? That we illegally inspected customs containers, broke into storage facilities, and have photographs of bomb components we obtained through criminal trespass? That'll get us arrested long before they take the threat seriously. Then we don't tell them how we know. We just... Anonymous tips about terrorist attacks get filed with 1,000 other crank calls unless there's credible evidence to support them, Thomas interrupted. Without details they can verify, we're just noise in a system designed to filter out noise. Elena pulled her hand free from Victor's grip. So we let 5,000 people walk into a death trap because we're worried about legal exposure? We let them walk into a death trap if we can't provide actionable intelligence, Victor corrected. Which means we need more than theory and pattern recognition. We need specifics, exact locations of the devices, timing mechanisms, fail-safes. Enough detail that authorities can't ignore it. How are we supposed to get those specifics? Sophia asked. The people running this operation have already proven they'll kill anyone who gets close, and we've got maybe 10 hours before the summit starts. Victor moved to the window, favoring his injured shoulder. The pre-dawn darkness outside was starting to give way to gray light. We have 3 known locations where containers were delivered. The warehouse is a crime scene now, probably crawling with police. But the storage facility at Bayside and the freight terminal near the airport, those are still active. Active and guarded, Marcus pointed out. We saw security at Bayside. The airport terminal will have even more. Then we don't go in shooting, Victor said. We go in smart, get close enough to confirm the devices are there, document everything, then hand it all to the authorities with enough evidence they have to act immediately. Elena studied his face, seeing the calculation behind his eyes. You're not planning to just document, are you? You're planning to disable those bombs yourself. Victor didn't deny it. If I can, but priority 1 is confirming locations and getting that information to people who can do something about it. Thomas, I need you to compile everything we have into a package that'll be impossible to ignore. Photos, manifest records, routing data, everything. Make it professional enough that it looks like legitimate intelligence. I can do that, Thomas said. But Victor, even with a perfect intelligence package, there's bureaucracy, verification protocols, chain of command. Getting the right information to the right people and having them act on it in less than 10 hours is going to be nearly impossible. Then we make it possible, Victor said flatly, because the alternative is unacceptable. Sophia was already checking weapons, doing the mental preparation Elena had seen her do before. If we're hitting 2 locations simultaneously, we need to split the team. Marcus and I can take the freight terminal. You take Bayside. I can't go into a tactical situation with a gunshot wound, Victor said, and Elena could hear how much it cost him to admit it. I'd be a liability. Marcus, you're lead on the terminal. Sophia, you're with me at Bayside. We'll have Thomas coordinate remotely. What about me? Elena asked. Everyone turned to look at her. You stay here, Victor said. This is different from surveillance. We're talking about potential confrontation with armed security and unstable explosives. It's too dangerous. Everything about the last 48 hours has been too dangerous, Elena countered. But I'm still here, still alive, still seeing patterns you need me to see. This isn't pattern recognition. This is combat. Then teach me what I need to know. Elena moved closer, her voice steady, despite the fear coursing through her. You said it yourself. We're running out of time. You need every person you can get. I can follow orders, I can stay out of the way, and I can document what we find. That's 3 things you need. Victor looked at Sophia, some silent communication passing between them. Sophia shrugged slightly. She's proven she can handle pressure, and having an extra set of eyes watching for threats isn't a bad idea. Fine, Victor said after a long moment. But Elena, I need you to understand something. If shooting starts, you don't try to be a hero. You get down, you stay down, and you let the people with training handle it. Can you do that? Yes. I mean it. No improvising, no taking initiative. You follow orders exactly as given or you stay here. Those are the only options. Elena met his gaze without flinching. I understand. The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. Thomas worked his laptop magic, compiling their evidence into packages he could send to multiple law enforcement agencies simultaneously. Sophia and Marcus prepped equipment, checking weapons and communications gear with the kind of focused intensity that left no room for small talk. Victor walked Elena through basic protocols, how to move in a tactical situation, hand signals for common commands, what to do if they encountered armed resistance. His shoulder was clearly bothering him, but he pushed through it with the kind of stubborn determination Elena was starting to recognize as core to who he was. The most important thing is staying aware of your surroundings, he explained, showing her proper positioning. You don't tunnel vision on one threat. You scan constantly, watch for movement, listen for sounds that don't fit the environment. Like I did at the gala, Elena said. Exactly like that. You already have the instincts. I'm just giving you framework to apply them. Victor adjusted her stance slightly. And if something feels wrong, if your gut tells you a situation is about to go bad, you trust that feeling and you move. Don't wait for confirmation. Don't second-guess yourself. Just react. My father used to say the same thing, Elena said quietly. That hesitation gets you killed. Your father was right. Victor stepped back, evaluating her position. You're a quick study. That'll help. By 7 a.m., they were ready. Thomas had uploaded encrypted evidence packages to anonymous servers, timed to auto-send to FBI, Homeland Security, and local law enforcement at 9 a.m. That gave them a 2-hour window to gather additional intel and potentially disable devices before authorities descended on the locations. 2 hours, Thomas said, pulling up maps on his laptop. After 9 a.m., these sites will be swarming with federal agents. If you're still inside when that happens, extraction becomes exponentially harder. Then we're in and out fast, Sophia said. She looked at Marcus. Airport terminal is your priority. Get eyes on that container, confirm contents, photograph everything. If you can safely disable detonators without triggering fail-safes, do it. But don't take unnecessary risks. Marcus nodded. What's our communication protocol? Radio silence unless absolutely necessary, Victor said. We can't risk transmissions being intercepted. Thomas will monitor police frequencies and contact us if there's emergency movement toward either location. Otherwise, we operate dark until extraction. They split into 2 vehicles. Marcus took one of the SUVs and headed toward the airport. Victor, Sophia, and Elena climbed into the other and drove toward Bayside storage. The morning traffic was starting to build. Commuters heading into the city, delivery trucks making their rounds, the ordinary flow of urban life. Elena watched it all through the window, thinking about how none of these people had any idea what was coming. The bombs hidden in storage facilities and warehouses. The attack planned for this afternoon. The potential for everything to go catastrophically wrong. You're thinking too much, Victor said from the driver's seat. How can you tell? You've got that look. Like you're trying to calculate every possible outcome. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Don't. It'll paralyze you when you need to move. How do you not think about it? All the things that could go wrong? I think about them. Then I plan for them. Then I execute anyway because the alternative is doing nothing. Victor's voice was matter-of-fact. Fear is useful if it makes you careful. It's deadly if it makes you freeze. They reached Bayside storage just before 8 a.m. The facility looked different in daylight, less ominous, more mundane. Just another self-storage complex where people kept old furniture and boxes of memories they couldn't bring themselves to throw away. The semi-truck from last night was gone. The The storage unit in question sat silent and seemingly abandoned, its reinforced door closed tight. Guards pulled out, Sophia observed. Either they finished unloading or they're maintaining a lower profile during daylight hours. Victor parked the SUV in a lot across the street, positioned for quick exit. Cameras are still active. We'll need to move during a blind spot. Elena studied the facility's security setup, applying everything Victor had taught her. The camera on the northeast corner has a dead zone near the fence line. If we approach from that angle, we've got maybe 20 seconds of coverage before we're back on screen. Good eye, Sophia said approvingly. That's our entry point. They waited for a delivery truck to pass, creating additional visual obstruction, then moved. Elena followed Sophia's lead, keeping low and fast. Her heart hammered, but her body moved with surprising steadiness. Victor brought up the rear, moving more carefully because of his injury but still maintaining the pace. They reached the fence line, and Sophia produced wire cutters from her tactical bag. The chain link parted with quiet snips, creating an opening just large enough to slip through. Inside the facility now, they navigated between rows of storage units. The one they wanted was isolated in the back corner, exactly as Elena remembered from surveillance. Up close, she could see the modifications more clearly. Ventilation equipment that didn't match the standard units, reinforced hinges, a locking mechanism that looked military-grade. Someone spent serious money upgrading this, Victor murmured. That lock alone probably cost $5,000. Can you open it? Elena asked. Eventually, but not quietly. Victor examined the mechanism from multiple angles. Sophia, thoughts? Sophia was studying the ventilation equipment. These vents are active. Whatever's inside is generating heat that needs management. My guess is the detonators have electronic components that require temperature control. Which means there's probably a power source inside, Victor said. Battery banks or a small generator. More things that could go wrong if we're not careful. Elena moved around the perimeter of the unit, looking for anything they might have missed. Unit looking for cats. On the back wall, mostly hidden by shadow, she found something. A small access panel, the kind maintenance workers would use to check utilities. Here, she called quietly. Victor and Sophia joined her. The access panel was secured with a simple padlock, nothing like the sophisticated system on the main door. Backup access, Sophia said, in case someone gets locked inside accidentally. Smart find, Elena. Victor made quick work of the padlock with picks from his pocket. The panel swung open, revealing a crawl space barely large enough for a person to squeeze through. I'll go, Elena said before anyone could volunteer. I'm smaller, I'll fit easier. Elena, Victor started. You're injured and Sophia needs to maintain perimeter watch. I can do this. Just tell me what to look for. Victor hesitated, then nodded. Metal cases marked with hazard warnings. Wiring that connects to digital timers. Anything that looks like a power source. You photograph everything, you don't touch anything, and if you see any kind of motion sensor or tripwire, you back out immediately. Understood? Understood. Elena took the small camera Sophia handed her and crawled into the access panel. The space was tight and dark, lit only by thin streams of daylight coming through ventilation gaps. She pulled herself forward on her elbows, her breathing loud in the confined space. The storage unit's interior came into view gradually. Her eyes adjusted to the dimness, and she saw exactly what Victor had described. Metal cases stacked along one wall, thick cables snaking between them, and digital displays glowing with red numbers. Timers. Counting down. Elena's mouth went dry. She raised the camera and started photographing, capturing every angle she could manage from her limited position. The cases were labeled in English and what looked like Cyrillic script, hazard warnings, handling instructions, serial numbers. But it was the timers that held her attention. They were all synchronized, all showing the same countdown. 4 hours and 17 minutes. The economic summit was scheduled to begin at 1 p.m. These devices were set to detonate at 12:30, right when the convention center would be filling with attendees arriving for the opening session. Elena photographed the timers from multiple angles, making sure the countdown was clearly visible. This was the evidence they needed, proof of specific timing, proof of intent, proof that this was really happening. She was backing out of the crawl space when she heard voices outside. Elena froze. Through the thin walls of the storage unit, she could hear men talking, 2, maybe 3 of them, getting closer. Supposed to do a final systems check at 0900, one voice was saying. Make sure the timers are synchronized with the other locations. A boss wants redundancy, another voice replied. Can't have one device failing and compromising the whole operation. 4 simultaneous detonations is overkill anyway. One bomb at the convention center would be enough to make the point. Point isn't just casualties, it's coordinated chaos. Emergency services overwhelmed, media unable to focus on any single event, maximum disruption. The voices were right outside now. Elena heard keys rattling, the sophisticated lock mechanism engaging. They were opening the main door. Elena scrambled backward through the crawl space as quietly as she could manage. Her shirt snagged on a protruding screw, and she bit back a curse, yanking it free. The access panel was 10 feet away, 8 feet, 6 feet. The main door opened with a heavy metallic sound. Elena reached the access panel and slid through, easing it closed behind her just as light flooded the storage unit's interior. She pressed herself against the outside wall, camera clutched to her chest, barely breathing. Timers look good, one of the men said from inside. 4 hours, 12 minutes, right on schedule. Run diagnostics anyway, I don't want any surprises. Elena risked a glance around the corner of the unit. Victor and Sophia were nowhere in sight. They'd probably pulled back when they heard the men approaching. Smart tactical decision, but it left Elena exposed. She needed to move. Get to cover before the men finished their systems check and came back outside. But between her current position and the nearest concealment was 20 feet of open space clearly visible from multiple camera angles. The voices inside continued their technical discussion. Elena used the sound as cover, moving as quickly as she dared toward a cluster of units 30 feet away. Her legs felt unsteady, adrenaline making her movements jerky. She was halfway across the open space when one of the cameras rotated on its mount, sweeping in her direction. Elena dove behind a dumpster, her shoulder hitting metal with a dull thud that seemed impossibly loud. She held her breath, waiting for shouts of alarm. Nothing. Slowly, carefully, she peered around the dumpster's edge. The camera had completed its rotation and was now facing the opposite direction. The voices from the storage unit continued uninterrupted. A hand touched her shoulder and Elena nearly screamed. She spun around to find Sophia crouched behind the dumpster with her, one finger pressed to her lips in a silence gesture. Sophia pointed toward the fence line where they'd entered. Victor was there, keeping watch. Sophia gestured for Elena to follow, and they moved together, using the dumpster and a row of units as concealment. They reached the fence and slipped through the opening one at a time. Victor was the last out, and he'd barely cleared the chain link when the voices from inside the storage unit grew louder. Diagnostics are clean. Everything's ready for execution. Good. Let's get out of here before someone notices the facility has activity. The three of them reached the SUV and climbed inside with forced casualness. Victor started the engine and pulled into traffic, maintaining normal speed despite every instinct probably screaming to run. Elena's hands were shaking as she reviewed the photos on the camera. Clear images of the bomb components, the timers, the warning labels, everything they needed. 4 hours and 12 minutes, she said, her voice not quite steady. That's when they detonate. 12:30 p.m. Before the summit officially starts, Victor said grimly. Catch everyone while they're arriving. Maximum confusion and panic. Sophia was already on her phone, texting Thomas with an update. We need to move up the timeline on those evidence packages. Get them to authorities now, not at 9 a.m. 4 hours isn't enough time for bureaucracy. Agreed, Victor said. He pulled into a parking lot and called Thomas on speaker. Send everything now. FBI, Homeland Security, local police. Multiple redundant deliveries to make sure it can't be ignored. On it, Thomas replied. But Victor, even with immediate delivery, it'll take time for them to verify the intelligence and mobilize response teams. We're talking at minimum 2 hours before they can organize evacuation and bomb disposal. Then we buy them that time, Victor said. Marcus, what's your status at the airport? Marcus's voice came through the speaker, tight with tension. I'm looking at the container right now. Same setup as Bayside. Temperature-controlled storage, professional security, and a timer counting down 4 hours, 9 minutes. The devices here are positioned for maximum structural damage. If they detonate, they'll take out a significant portion of the freight terminal. Can you disable them? Sophia asked. Not without serious risk of triggering fail-safes. These aren't amateur devices. Whoever built them knew what they'd be up against. Marcus paused. I can document everything and get out. but actual disposal needs professionals. Elena thought about the men in the storage unit, their casual discussion of casualty counts and coordinated chaos. 4 locations, 4 bombs, thousands of potential victims. Even with law enforcement mobilized, could they respond fast enough to stop all 4 detonations? "There's another option," she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. "We find whoever's coordinating this operation and force them to abort," Elena continued. "The devices have timers, which means someone has to have manual control to override them in case plans change. We find that person. We make them stop the countdown." Victor's expression shifted, something like approval crossing his features. "That's actually not a bad idea. But we'd need to identify the coordinator and reach them in less than 4 hours. That's a tall order." "The men at the storage unit," Elena said, pulling up her photos. "I got pictures of their faces when they were leaving. Thomas can run facial recognition, maybe identify them. If they're doing systems checks, they're not low-level muscle. They might lead us directly to whoever's running this." "Worth a shot," Thomas said over the speaker. "Send me the photos. I'll run them through every database I can access." Elena transferred the images while Victor navigated back toward the farmhouse. The morning traffic was heavier now, the city fully awake and going about its business. In a few hours, these same streets could be chaos. Emergency vehicles screaming toward bombing sites, people running from the convention center in panic, the kind of devastation that changed a city forever. Unless they stopped it. At the farmhouse, Thomas had transformed the kitchen into a command center. Multiple laptops displayed different data streams. Police scanners, news feeds, facial recognition software processing, Elena's photographs. "Evidence packages are out," Thomas reported. "Sent to 17 different agencies with varying priority levels. Someone will respond. It's just a question of when." "We need it to be now," Sophia said, checking her weapons. 4 hours isn't enough margin for error. Marcus arrived 20 minutes later, bringing his own photographs and documentation from the airport terminal. Together, they had comprehensive evidence of at least 2 bombing locations, detailed images of the devices, and precise timing information. It should have been enough, but Elena kept thinking about bureaucratic processes, verification protocols, all the systems designed to prevent hasty action based on unverified intelligence. Those systems existed for good reasons, but right now they were obstacles between thousands of people and safety. "Got a hit," Thomas announced suddenly. Facial recognition identified one of the men from Elena's photos. His name is Alexander Volkov, former Russian military intelligence. He's been flagged by Interpol in connection with arms trafficking and explosives expertise. "That's our bomb builder," Victor said, moving to look at Thomas's screen. "What else do we have on him?" "Known associate of several Eastern European criminal syndicates. Suspected involvement in at least 3 terrorist attacks over the past decade, but never enough evidence to prosecute." Thomas pulled up more files. Last known residence was in Prague, but he's been spotted in various locations over the past year. No current address on file. "Does he have any known contacts in the city?" Elena asked. "Property holdings, business relationships, anything that might tell us where he's operating from?" Thomas's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Checking financial records, travel documents, communication intercepts. Give me a few minutes." While Thomas worked, Sophia made coffee that nobody really wanted, but everyone drank anyway. The nervous energy in the farmhouse was palpable. Everyone moving just to avoid standing still, everyone checking the time constantly as the countdown ticked forward. 3 hours and 47 minutes until detonation. "Found something," Thomas said. Volkov's phone pinged a cell tower near the waterfront district 2 days ago. He made several calls to a number registered to a shipping company that— Wait. Thomas's expression changed. "The shipping company is owned by the same shell corporation that owns the warehouse that burned down. The one where they found the bodies." "So Volkov is directly connected to the organization running this operation," Victor said. "That makes him high level, possibly even the coordinator." "If he is the coordinator, he'll have the override codes for those timers," Elena said. The pieces were falling into place in her mind. "We find him. We make him abort the detonations." "Make him how?" Marcus asked. "He's a trained intelligence operative with a history of violent resistance. He's not going to cooperate just because we ask nicely." Victor's expression was grim. "Then we ask in a language he understands. Sophia, Marcus, gear up. We're going hunting." Thomas pulled up maps of the waterfront district, highlighting the cell tower Volkov's phone had pinged. This covers maybe a square mile of territory. Warehouses, commercial buildings, some residential. Without a specific address, we're looking at hundreds of potential locations. Then we narrow it down, Elena said, studying the map. Volkov needs somewhere with good security, space for coordination, and easy access to escape routes. Residential is out. Too many witnesses. Standard commercial buildings have too much foot traffic. Warehouses, Sophia said. Isolated, controllable, defensible. And there are dozens in that area, Marcus pointed out. Elena stared at the map, looking for patterns. The waterfront district had been gentrifying over the past decade. Old industrial buildings converted to lofts and galleries, new development pushing out older structures. But some areas remained untouched, too expensive to redevelop or tied up in legal complications. Thomas, can you pull property records for warehouses in this area? She asked. Specifically ones that are listed as vacant or under renovation? On it. Thomas pulled up city records. 32 warehouses fitting that description. Most are owned by various development companies waiting for the market to improve. Cross-reference those ownership records with any connection to the Shell Corporation, Victor said. Even indirect links through parent companies or shared board members. Thomas worked for several tense minutes. Got 3 possibles. All purchased within the last year, all listed as under renovation, but with no actual building permits filed. That's our short list, Elena said. 3 locations, we split up and checked them simultaneously. Too risky, Victor countered. If Volkov is at one of these locations, he'll have security. We need to stay together, clear each site methodically. We don't have time for methodical, Elena argued. 3 hours and change until detonation. If we check locations sequentially and Volkov is at the 3rd one, we'll never reach him in time. The room fell into tense silence as everyone processed this. Finally, Sophia spoke. Elena's right. We need to move fast, take calculated risks. Victor, you're still injured. You should coordinate from here with Thomas. Marcus, Elena, and I can each take a location. Absolutely not, Victor said immediately. Elena's not going into a potential hostile situation alone. I won't be alone, Elena interrupted. I'll have radio contact, backup protocols, everything we've set up. And Victor, you know I'm right about the timing. We can't afford to be slow and safe. Victor looked like he wanted to argue further, but pain crossed his face as he moved his injured shoulder. He knew his limitations, even if he hated admitting them. Fine, he said finally, but new rules. You approach each location from a distance first. Surveillance only. If you see anything that suggests hostile presence, you do not engage. You report and wait for backup. Understood? Understood, Elena, Sophia, and Marcus said in unison. Thomas distributed the 3 addresses. Sophia got a converted cannery building on Pier 17. Marcus got a warehouse complex near the shipping yards. Elena got an old grain storage facility 2 miles inland from the waterfront. They synchronized watches, checked communications equipment, and ran through emergency extraction protocols one final time. Through it all, Elena felt a strange calm settling over her. This was what her father had trained her for, even if he'd never imagined this specific scenario. Read the situation, assess the threats, act decisively. 3 hours and 21 minutes until detonation. They split up, each taking a different vehicle. Elena drove the route to the grain storage facility with forced casualness, trying not to think about the fact that she was potentially heading into a confrontation with trained killers. The radio on her hip was a small comfort. At least she could call for help if things went wrong. The grain facility appeared gradually through morning haze. It was massive, a complex of concrete silos and corrugated metal buildings that had probably processed thousands of tons of wheat and corn back when this part of the city was still industrial. Now it sat abandoned, surrounded by chain-link fence covered in rust and graffiti. Elena parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, using early morning foot traffic as cover. A few joggers, a homeless man pushing a shopping cart, someone walking their dog. Normal city life, oblivious to the countdown ticking away in hidden storage facilities. She found a position behind a bus stop shelter with clear sight lines to the facility's main entrance. Through binoculars, she could see the gate was closed but not locked. The chain that should have secured it was hanging loose. Recent tire tracks led through the entrance. Someone was here. Elena keyed her radio. "This is Elena. I've got activity at my location. Fresh tire tracks, unsecured gate. proceeding to closer observation. Negative, Victor's voice crackled back. Hold position and wait for backup. How long? Marcus is 15 minutes out, Sophia 20, you wait for them. Elena lowered the radio and studied the facility. The tire tracks led toward one of the larger buildings in the complex. Through gaps in the structure, she could see light, artificial, not sunlight. Someone was definitely inside. 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, whoever was in that building could leave, could move to a different location, could execute whatever final preparations they needed for the afternoon's attack. Elena knew she should wait, should follow orders like she'd promised, but her instincts were screaming that time was the one resource they didn't have. She made a decision she hoped she wouldn't regret. I'm going closer, she said into the radio. Just visual confirmation. I won't engage. Elena, negative, Victor started, but she'd already turned down the radio volume and was moving. She slipped through the gate and used the complex's abandoned buildings as cover, working her way toward the structure with the lights. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady, muscle memory from her father's training taking over. Close now. She could hear voices inside, muffled but distinct, men speaking in what sounded like Russian. She couldn't understand the words, but the tone was businesslike. Final preparations, maybe. Systems checks. Elena moved along the building's perimeter until she found a grimy window. She wiped away enough dirt to see inside. What she saw made her blood freeze. Alexander Volkov stood at a central table, surrounded by 4 other men. But it wasn't the men that stopped her cold, it was what was on the table. A laptop displaying a map of the city, 4 red dots marking locations, and above each dot, a digital timer counting down. 3 hours and 8 minutes. Volkov was the coordinator, and she was looking at his command center. Elena raised her camera with shaking hands and started photographing everything she could see. The map, the timers, the faces of everyone in the room. Evidence that would make it impossible for authorities to dismiss the threat. She was so focused on documenting the scene that she didn't hear the footsteps behind her until it was too late. A hand clamped over her mouth, an arm wrapped around her throat. A voice whispered in accented English close to her ear. You should not be here, little spy. Elena's training kicked in before conscious thought. She drove her elbow backward hard into her attacker's ribs, twisted her head to the side to break the mouth seal, and stomped down on his instep with everything she had. The man grunted in pain, and his grip loosened just enough for her to duck under his arm and spin away. She got maybe 3 steps before he caught her jacket and yanked her back. This time his hand went to her throat, cutting off air. Elena clawed at his fingers, her vision already starting to tunnel. Yuri, what is happening out there? A voice called from inside the building. Russian, sharp with irritation. Elena's attacker, Yuri, responded in Russian, his grip still crushing her windpipe. Through the roaring in her ears, she heard the door to the building open, footsteps approaching. Then Yuri suddenly released her, and she collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. Strong hands grabbed her arms and hauled her upright. She found herself staring into the cold eyes of Alexander Volkov himself. Well, Volkov said in lightly accented English. This is unexpected. Who are you? Elena couldn't answer, still struggling to breathe. Volkov studied her with the detached interest of a scientist examining an insect. He reached into her jacket and pulled out the camera, scrolling through the photos she'd taken with increasing displeasure. You have been very busy, he said. Documenting our operation, photographing our devices. This is problematic. He looked at Yuri. Search her for weapons and communication devices. Yuri's hands moved over her with professional efficiency, finding the radio on her hip and the Glock tucked in her waistband. He took both, along with her phone. Elena Cross, Volkov read from her driver's license, which Yuri had also confiscated. Or should I say Elena Martinez? We know quite a lot about you. The waitress who warned Victor Hale at the gala. The variable that disrupted our initial timeline. He pocketed her ID. You have been a thorn in our operation from the beginning. Elena's throat was on fire, but she forced words out. The FBI knows everything. They're already mobilizing. You can't stop them. Can't we? Volkov smiled without warmth. The FBI is a large organization with many protocols. Even with good intelligence, they will need time to verify, to organize response teams, to navigate jurisdictional complexities. We have planned for this contingency. He gestured and Yuri dragged Elena toward the building. Inside, the other men watched with varying degrees of interest. The laptop on the central table still displayed the countdown timers. 2 hours and 59 minutes. Secure her, Volkov ordered. Then return to your positions. We proceed as planned. Yuri zip-tied Elena's wrist to a support beam in the corner of the room. The plastic dug into her skin, but struggling only made it worse. She forced herself to stay calm, to observe and process information. The room was clearly a command center. In addition to the laptop with the countdown timers, there were radio systems, what looked like encrypted communication equipment, and several hard-shell cases that probably contained additional weapons or explosives. The four men besides Volkov and Yuri all had the bearing of military or intelligence operatives, disciplined, alert, dangerous. Volkov returned to his laptop, typing commands with practiced ease. The summit begins in 3 hours. Our devices detonate 30 minutes before the opening ceremonies. By the time emergency services respond to the convention center, our secondary devices will detonate at the shopping plaza, transit station, and entertainment complex. Coordinated chaos across 4 zones. Emergency systems will be completely overwhelmed. Why? Elena asked, her voice raspy. What's the point of all this death? Volkov looked at her with something approaching pity. You think this is about death? This is about demonstration, proving that security is an illusion, that no amount of screening or surveillance can prevent determined actors from striking at the heart of power. He gestured at the screen. Your government invited international delegates to discuss economic cooperation and security partnership. We will show them how meaningless those partnerships are. You're insane, Elena said. I am pragmatic. My organization was hired to send a message. We are simply delivering as contracted. Volkov checked his watch. In less than 3 hours, this city will understand that safety is a comfortable lie, and your authorities will scramble to explain how they failed to prevent an attack carried out with components that pass through their own customs system. Elena's mind raced through possibilities. Victor and the others knew where she was. They'd heard at least part of her final radio transmission before Yuri caught her. Marcus was supposed to be 15 minutes out, Sophia 20. That was, she checked the wall clock, almost 10 minutes ago. Help was coming, but would it arrive before Volkov's team moved to their next position? One of the men near the radio equipment spoke in Russian. Volkov responded, then switched to English, probably for Elena's benefit. Our perimeter patrol reports no unusual activity. We maintain operational security. Of course they had perimeter security. Elena had walked right into a professional operation with multiple layers of protection. Victor had been right to tell her to wait for backup, and she'd ignored him because she thought she knew better. Now she was captured, her team's approach was potentially compromised, and the countdown continued. 2 hours and 47 minutes. Outside, she heard the sound of vehicles. More of Volkov's people arriving, maybe. Or possibly, she allowed herself a thread of hope. Victor and the others. Volkov heard it too. He snapped orders in Russian, and 3 of his men grabbed weapons and moved toward the exits. The room's energy shifted instantly from calm preparation to tactical alert. Elena tested the zip ties again, looking for any weakness. The plastic cut into her wrists but didn't give. The support beam she was tied to was solid steel, probably original to the building's construction. No way she was breaking free without tools. Gunfire erupted outside. Short, controlled bursts, answered by heavier automatic fire. Elena's heart leapt. That had to be Victor's team engaging Volkov's perimeter security. Volkov didn't seem concerned. He continued working at his laptop, fingers moving steadily across the keyboard. Your friends have made a tactical error. We have superior positioning and firepower. This delays us, but it does not stop us. More gunfire. Closer now. Yuri positioned himself near the main entrance, weapon trained on the doorway. The remaining man in the room took cover behind equipment crates. Then silence. Long, terrible seconds of nothing. Volkov's radio crackled, Russian voices, tense and urgent. Volkov responded calmly, then looked at Elena. Your friends have retreated. My men are pursuing. Soon we will have more prisoners to negotiate with. Elena's stomach twisted. If Victor's team was pinned down or captured, their last chance to stop the bombing evaporated. She pulled against the zip ties hard enough to feel skin tear, pain shooting up her arms. That will accomplish nothing, Volkov said mildly. You should save your strength. You may need it later. The sound of an explosion shook the building. Not massive, but close. Smoke began filtering through gaps in the walls. Volkov's expression changed for the first time, irritation crossing his features. He barked orders in Russian. Yuri moved to investigate, weapon raised. Another explosion, this one from a different direction. More smoke. Someone was throwing flashbangs or concussion grenades, Elena realized, creating chaos and concealment. Yuri returned and spoke rapidly in Russian. Volkov's jaw tightened. He snapped a response, then began shutting down his laptop. Change of plans, he said, more to himself than Elena. We moved to the secondary location earlier than scheduled. Yuri, prep for extraction. The radio crackled again. This time the voice on the other end sounded panicked. Volkov responded with sharp commands, but Elena could hear uncertainty creeping into his tone. Victor's team wasn't retreating. They were adapting, using unconventional tactics to disrupt and destabilize. And it was working. Yuri was pulling equipment from crates, preparing for rapid evacuation. The remaining guard maintained his position covering the entrance. Volkov saved files from his laptop to what looked like an encrypted drive, then started erasing the hard drive. More gunfire outside, now from multiple directions. Shouts in English and Russian. The controlled operation was degrading into chaos. Volkov grabbed the encrypted drive and shoved it in his jacket. We leave now. Bring the woman. She may still have value as leverage. Yuri moved toward Elena, producing a knife to cut her free from the support beam. He left her wrists bound but hauled her upright roughly. You walk or I drag you. Choose. I'll walk, Elena managed. They moved toward a rear exit, Volkov leading, Yuri pushing Elena forward, the guard covering their retreat. Outside, the grain facility's complex layout provided multiple routes through the buildings. Smoke from the grenades created patches of concealment. Somewhere in that smoke were Victor, Sophia, and Marcus. But Elena had no way to signal her position. They reached a loading dock where two vehicles waited, engines running. Volkov climbed into the first, gesturing for Yuri to bring Elena. But before they could move, a figure emerged from the smoke 30 feet away. Marcus. Weapon raised, trained on Volkov. Nobody moves, Marcus called out. Everything froze for a heartbeat. Then Yuri shoved Elena forward and she stumbled directly into Marcus's line of fire. Marcus couldn't shoot without hitting her. Volkov used the distraction to dive into his vehicle. The driver gunned the engine and the car shot forward, tires screaming. Marcus tracked it with his weapon, but the angle was wrong. Too many obstacles, too much risk of hitting civilians on the street beyond. Yuri still had Elena, now using her as a human shield. He backed toward the second vehicle, his own weapon pressed against her spine. Stay back or I kill her, he shouted to Marcus. Marcus didn't lower his weapon, but didn't advance either. You kill her. You've got nothing to negotiate with. We both know how this goes. Then we have stalemate, Yuri said. He'd reached the vehicle now, forcing Elena into the passenger seat while keeping his gun on her. Tell Hale he is lost. The devices will detonate as scheduled. Nothing can stop that now. He climbed into the driver's seat, weapon still trained on Elena. You try to follow, I shoot her and crash the car. Everyone dies. You understand? Marcus's expression was stone. I understand. The vehicle peeled out, heading for a different exit than Volkov had taken. Elena watched Marcus disappear behind them, then focused on her immediate situation. Yuri drove with aggressive confidence, one hand on the wheel, his weapon now resting on his lap, but within easy reach. Where are you taking me? Elena asked. Quiet. They navigated through industrial streets, heading deeper into the warehouse district. Yuri made several turns that suggested he was following a pre-planned escape route, checking mirrors constantly for pursuit. Elena's mind worked through options. Her wrists were still zip-tied. Yuri was armed and clearly trained. Trying to grab the wheel or attack him while the vehicle was moving would probably just get them both killed in a crash. She needed to wait for a better opportunity. They drove for maybe 15 minutes before Yuri pulled into an underground parking structure beneath what looked like an abandoned office building. He parked in a shadowed corner and killed the engine. Out, he ordered. Elena climbed out awkwardly, her bound hands making everything difficult. Yuri kept his weapon trained on her as he led her to a service elevator. The building felt dead. No lights, no sounds of occupancy, just concrete and dust. The elevator groaned upward 3 floors and opened into a hallway lined with empty offices. Yuri pushed Elena into one of the rooms and forced her into a chair. He secured her ankles to the chair legs with more zip ties, then stepped back. "You wait here," he said. "I make phone calls, arrange next steps. You try to escape, you die. Simple." He left the room, but Elena could hear him in the hallway, speaking in rapid Russian. She tested the zip ties methodically. Wrists were too tight to slip, ankles the same. The chair was old but solid, no obvious weak points. The office had been stripped of everything except basic furniture. One window overlooked the street 3 stories down. No way to signal for help, no way to escape without going through Yuri. Elena forced herself to think past the immediate situation. Volkov had escaped with the encrypted drive containing coordination data for the attack, but the devices were already in place, timers already counting down. Even if authorities found and neutralized 1 or 2 bombs, the others would still detonate unless someone accessed the override codes, which meant Volkov was still the key. He'd mentioned a secondary location, probably another command center where he could monitor the attack's execution. If Victor's team could find that location, they might still have a chance to force him to abort. But first, Victor needed to know Elena was alive and where she was being held. She looked around the office again, searching for anything useful. The room was stripped bare except for the chair, a desk with no drawers, and debris in the corners. Wait. In the corner furthest from the door was a piece of broken glass, maybe 6 inches long, sharp enough to cut zip ties if she could reach it. The chair wasn't bolted down. Elena tested her weight, rocking slightly. The chair moved. Not much, but enough. She began inching herself across the floor, making as little noise as possible. Each movement took effort with her ankles bound to the legs, but slowly the chair scraped toward the corner. In the hallway, Yuri's voice continued. He sounded frustrated, arguing with whoever was on the other end of his call. "Good. Keep him distracted." Elena reached the corner and twisted awkwardly, trying to angle her bound wrist toward the glass. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but she stretched further, fingertips brushing the glass edge. Almost there. Just a few more inches. The glass slipped from her fingers and slid further into the corner. Elena bit back a curse and tried again, straining until she thought her shoulders might dislocate. Her fingers closed on the glass. She began sawing at the zip tie on her wrists, the sharp edge cutting plastic and occasionally her own skin. Blood made the glass slippery, but she didn't stop. The plastic was starting to fray. Yuri's voice in the hallway changed tone. The phone call had ended. He was coming back. Elena sawed frantically. The zip tie was almost through. Maybe one more hard pull. The office door opened. Yuri took in the scene instantly. Elena in the corner, the glass in her hands, blood on her wrists. He crossed the room in 3 strides and ripped the glass away, throwing it against the wall where it shattered. His backhand caught Elena across the face, hard enough to snap her head sideways. "Stupid," Yuri snarled. "You think I am amateur? You think I leave you unwatched?" Elena tasted blood. Her cheek was already swelling, but the zip tie on her wrist, she could feel it hanging loose. Not cut completely through, but weakened enough that one good pull might break it. Yuri grabbed the chair and dragged it back to the center of the room. "No more games. Volkov says you have value as hostage, so you live. But you try escape again. I hurt you badly. Understand?" Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Yuri's phone buzzed. He checked it, read something that made him smile coldly. "Good news. Your friends have failed. Authorities found 1 device at airport, but other 3 locations are secure. Attack proceeds as planned." 2 hours and 18 minutes, Elena calculated. Less than that now. The FBI had found Marcus's location, but not the others. 3 bombs were still active, still counting down. "What about Volkov?" she asked. "Did he make it to his secondary location?" "Why you want to know?" "Because if he's safe, you don't need me anymore. You can kill me and eliminate a witness." Yuri studied her suspiciously. "You want to live, so you try to make yourself valuable. Smart, but not smart enough. Volkov has other plans for you." "What plans?" "That is not my concern." Yuri moved to the window, looking down at the street. "I wait for extraction orders. You wait with me. Then we see what Volkov decides." Elena tested the weakened zip tie carefully. If she pulled hard and fast, it might break. But then what? Her ankles were still secured to the chair. Yuri was armed and between her and the door. Even if she got her hands free, the odds of successful escape were minimal. But minimal odds were better than none. She waited until Yuri was focused on his phone, typing something. Then she yanked her wrists apart with everything she had. The zip tie broke. Yuri's head snapped up at the sound. Elena didn't think, just acted. She grabbed the chair with her newly freed hands and swung it, ankles still tied to the legs, directly at Yuri. The chair caught him in the ribs. Not hard enough to seriously injure, but enough to knock him off balance. His phone flew from his hands and skittered across the floor. Elena twisted, trying to break the ankle restraints through brute force. The plastic dug into her skin but didn't give. Yuri was recovering, reaching for his weapon. Elena grabbed the only thing within reach, the phone he'd dropped, and threw it at his face. It hit him in the temple. He stumbled backward, more surprised than hurt. Elena had maybe seconds. She threw her weight sideways and the chair toppled, taking her with it. The impact jarred her entire body, but she felt one of the ankle restraints loosen. She kicked hard and her right foot came free. Yuri was coming at her now, weapon drawn. Elena kicked with her free leg, catching his knee. He went down hard and the gun discharged, the bullet punching through the ceiling tiles. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Elena's ears rang, but she kept moving, using her free foot to kick at Yuri's head while wrestling with the remaining zip tie on her left ankle. Yuri grabbed her leg and twisted viciously. Pain shot through Elena's knee, but she drove her heel into his face. His nose crunched and blood sprayed. The left ankle restraint finally broke. Elena scrambled to her feet just as Yuri raised his weapon. She dove behind the desk as he fired twice, bullets punching through the cheap particle board. Elena's hand closed on something, a piece of the chair that had broken off during the struggle. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. She waited for Yuri to come around the desk. Instead, she heard his footsteps moving away, toward the door. He was leaving, probably to get reinforcements or better positioning. Elena didn't waste the opportunity. She ran for the window. 3 stories up, no fire escape visible. The building across the narrow alley was maybe 10 feet away, close enough to see details in the windows, too far to jump. But there was a ledge running along the outside of the building, maybe 18 inches wide. Maintenance access, probably. Elena didn't let herself think about it. She kicked out what remained of the window glass and climbed onto the ledge. The drop to the alley below made her stomach lurch. The ledge was narrower than it had looked from inside, crumbling concrete that had been deteriorating for years. She pressed her back against the building and began sliding sideways, not looking down. Behind her, she heard Yuri shout, then gunfire. Bullets struck the wall near her head, showering her with concrete fragments. Elena moved faster, her feet barely fitting on the ledge. 20 feet to the corner of the building. 50. 10. Her foot hit a weak section and it crumbled away. For a horrible moment, she had nothing under her left foot, her hand scrabbling at the rough wall for purchase. Then she found solid ledge again and kept moving. She reached the corner and risked a look back. Yuri was at the window, weapon trained on her, but the angle was bad and Elena was partially concealed by the building's corner. The ledge continued around the corner. Elena followed it, moving out of Yuri's line of sight. This side of the building faced a loading alley. Below she could see a dumpster. Not a soft landing, but maybe survivable if she could position the fall right. Elena measured the distance, 12 feet of drop, maybe 14. She'd broken ribs in falls before. This would probably be worse. But staying on the ledge meant waiting for Yuri to either shoot her or come around to her position. She jumped. The fall lasted forever and no time at all. She hit the dumpster's closed lid hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. The metal buckled under her impact, and she rolled off the side, landing in the alley in a heap. Everything hurt. Elena forced herself upright, testing limbs for breaks. Her left ankle was screaming, her ribs felt bruised or cracked, and her hands were bleeding from various cuts. But she could move. She could run. The alley opened onto a side street. Elena stumbled toward it, her body running on pure adrenaline now. Behind her, she heard shouts. Yuri had found another route down. She emerged onto the street and immediately saw salvation. A police cruiser was stopped at the light 2 blocks away. Elena ran toward it, waving her arms. "Help! I need help!" The officers saw her, bloodied, limping, clearly in distress. The cruiser's lights flashed on and it accelerated toward her position. Elena reached the patrol car just as Yuri appeared at the alley mouth. He saw the police and immediately retreated back into the shadows. Ma'am, what happened? One of the officers asked, getting out of the vehicle. Are you injured? There's a terrorist attack, Elena gasped. Bombs set to go off in less than 2 hours. Convention center, shopping plaza, other locations. You have to call it in. Evacuate immediately. Ma'am, slow down, the officer said, clearly thinking he was dealing with someone in shock or having a mental health crisis. Let's get you to a hospital. No! Elena grabbed his arm. Listen to me. My name is Elena Cross. There should be intelligence reports flooding into federal agencies right now about bombs placed by an organization run by Alexander Volkov. I have information about his location, about the devices, everything. You need to contact FBI immediately and tell them Elena Cross needs to speak with whoever's coordinating response to the bombing threat. The two officers exchanged uncertain glances. Then the first one spoke into his radio, relaying Elena's information to dispatch. There was a pause, then a crackling response that Elena couldn't quite hear. The officer's expression changed completely. Ma'am, dispatch says FBI has been trying to locate you for the past hour. They're requesting immediate contact. Can you tell me exactly where the suspect Volkov is located? He was at the old grain storage facility on Riverside Industrial Drive, but he evacuated when we engaged his security. He mentioned a secondary location, but I don't know where. Elena's words tumbled out in a rush. But the bombs are on timers. They're set to detonate at 12:30, targeting the Economic Summit and 3 other sites. Even if you can't find Volkov, you need to evacuate those locations now. The officer was already on his radio, passing along everything Elena said. Within minutes, the street filled with the sound of approaching sirens. Federal vehicles, local police, emergency services, the machinery of official response finally kicking into high gear. An unmarked car screeched to a stop and 2 people in FBI windbreakers jumped out. Elena Cross? The woman asked. I'm Special Agent Rivera. This is Agent Park. We need to debrief you immediately on everything you know about this operation. They moved to Rivera's vehicle and Elena laid out everything while Park recorded on a tablet. The storage facilities, the devices, the timers, Volkov's command center, his escape with the encrypted drive. She described the coordination laptop she'd photographed, the secondary location Volkov had mentioned, every detail she could remember. The devices at Bayside Storage and the grain facility. We have eyes on both now, Rivera said. Bomb disposal teams are en route, but we haven't located the third device yet. You said there were 4 total? 4 bombs, 4 locations. The convention center is the primary target. The others are secondary strikes meant to overwhelm emergency response. Elena checked her watch. 1 hour and 47 minutes until detonation. Can your teams disarm them in time? We're about to find out, Rivera said grimly. She looked at Park. Get her statement on record, then protective custody, until we've neutralized the threat. I need to coordinate with the tactical teams. As Rivera rushed away, Elena gave Park a complete formal statement, every detail she could recall, every observation, every piece of intelligence gathered over the past 2 days. It took 20 minutes she wasn't sure they had. When she finished, Park looked up from his tablet. You did good work, Ms. Cross. Because of you, we have a real chance at stopping this. What about Victor Hale and his team? They engaged Volkov's people at the grain facility, helped create the opening that led to all this intelligence. Park's expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Hale and his associates are currently being sought for questioning regarding multiple violations of federal law. If you have information about their location, I don't, Elena lied. She wasn't about to hand Victor over to federal prosecution after everything he'd done to help stop this attack. Park didn't push it. You'll need to remain available for additional questioning. For now, we're moving you to a secure location while we handle the immediate crisis. Elena was loaded into another vehicle and driven to a nondescript office building that apparently housed a local FBI field office. They put her in a conference room with bottled water and a basic first aid kit for her injuries. Through the walls, she could hear the organized chaos of an active terrorism response, people shouting updates, phones ringing constantly, the controlled urgency of professionals racing against a countdown. 1 hour and 22 minutes. Elena cleaned and bandaged her hands, wrapped her swollen ankle, and tried not to think about what might be happening at the bomb sites. Disposal teams working against the clock. Thousands of people being evacuated from the convention center and surrounding areas. Emergency services positioning for worst-case scenarios. And somewhere out there, Victor and his team were still operating in shadows, probably trying to locate Volkov's secondary command center. The FBI hadn't found it yet. But if anyone could track down a ghost in this city's underworld, it was Victor. The door opened and Agent Rivera entered, her expression unreadable. The devices at Bayside Storage and the grain facility have been secured and disarmed. No detonation, no casualties. Elena felt relief wash through her. 2 down. What about the other 2? The convention center has been evacuated and we've located a suspicious package in a maintenance area. Bomb squad is working on it now. But the 4th device? Rivera paused. We still haven't found it. You said there were 4 locations controlled by Volkov's shell company. We've identified 3. Do you have any information about the 4th? Elena tried to remember everything Thomas had shown them on the laptop back at the farmhouse. There were 4 properties purchased through the Shell Corporation. The warehouse that burned down, the storage facility at Bayside, and 2 others. Thomas, one of Victor's people, had a list. If you can locate him. We're trying, but Hale's entire team has gone dark. Rivera's frustration was evident. We need that 4th location, Ms. Cross. We're running out of time and we're working blind. Elena closed her eyes, forcing her exhausted mind to reconstruct the map Thomas had shown them. 4 properties, 4 red dots on a city map. 3 were accounted for. The 4th was where? She'd seen it. She'd looked right at it. Near the waterfront, close to other strategic locations. The old ferry terminal, she said suddenly. The building that used to process passengers for the harbor ferries before they relocated to the new terminal. It's been abandoned for years. Rivera was already on her phone. Get me property records for the old harbor ferry terminal. Cross-reference with our shell company list. She listened for a moment. Confirm? Excellent. Dispatch bomb squad and tactical teams immediately. She ended the call and looked at Elena. You were right. The ferry terminal building was purchased 6 months ago through one of the subsidiary companies. We've got units en route now. 58 minutes until detonation. The next hour was agony. Elena sat in the conference room while updates filtered in through the walls. The device at the convention center had been successfully disarmed. The ferry terminal team had located the 4th bomb and was working on it. Evacuation orders were still in effect across multiple zones as a precaution, and still no sign of Alexander Volkov. With 15 minutes left on the countdown, Rivera returned to the conference room. All 4 devices have been disarmed. The threat is neutralized. Elena sagged in her chair, the tension that had been holding her upright for the past 2 days finally releasing. It's over? The immediate threat is over, but Volkov is still at large along with several of his operatives. We've got a manhunt underway, but he's proven very good at disappearing. Rivera sat down across from Elena. What you did, providing intelligence, risking your life to document their operation, you saved thousands of lives today. The Bureau will want to discuss potential cooperation going forward, given your unique skill set. I'm not interested in working for the FBI, Elena said flatly. I just want to go back to my life. That may not be possible. Volkov knows who you are. As long as he's free, you're at risk. Rivera pulled out a business card. We can offer protection, relocation if necessary, but you'll need to stay accessible for the ongoing investigation. Elena took the card without committing to anything. What about Victor Hale? Are you still planning to prosecute him? That's above my pay grade, but between us? Rivera's voice lowered. Without Hale's team, we wouldn't have had half the intelligence we needed to stop this. The SAC is aware of that. How it factors into any charging decisions remains to be seen. A knock on the door interrupted them. Another agent stuck his head in. Rivera, we've got something. Traffic cam footage shows a vehicle matching Volkov's description heading toward the industrial waterfront. Unit is requesting permission to pursue. Rivera was on her feet immediately. Tell them to maintain surveillance, but do not engage. We're coordinating a tactical response. She looked back at Elena. Stay here. This isn't over yet. But Elena had had enough of sitting in conference rooms while other people took action. As soon as Rivera left, Elena slipped out a side door and made her way to the parking garage. She still had cuts and bruises and an ankle that was probably sprained, but she could move. A taxi was dropping someone off at the building entrance. Elena grabbed it before the driver could pull away. Industrial Waterfront District, she said. I'll pay double if you get there fast. The driver looked at her disheveled appearance skeptically, but the cash she showed him changed his mind. They pulled into traffic and headed toward the water. Elena's phone, actually a burner phone Agent Park had given her to replace the one Yuri had confiscated, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Old Pier Warehouse. Volkov barricaded inside with hostages. FBI moving too slow. Coming now if you want to help finish this. V. Victor. He'd found Volkov's location and was planning to move on it himself rather than wait for federal response to organize. Elena texted back her location. Victor's response was immediate. 6 minutes out. Meet at the corner of Dock Street and Harbor Way. The taxi dropped her at the intersection. Elena paid the driver and limped to the corner where a familiar black SUV was idling. The door opened and Sophia gestured her inside. You look like hell, Sophia said without judgment. I feel like hell. Elena climbed in to find Victor, Marcus, and Thomas all present. What's the situation? Volkov's holed up in a warehouse with at least 2 hostages, port security guards he grabbed when they tried to investigate, Victor explained. He was moving better now, his shoulder apparently treated during the hours since Elena had last seen him. FBI has units responding, but they're following protocol. Negotiators, tactical assessment, perimeter establishment. It'll take hours. You're planning to go in now, Elena said. Volkov has an encrypted drive with information about his entire operation. Names, financial records, client contacts, everything. If he destroys that data or escapes with it, we lose the chance to dismantle his network completely. Victor met her eyes. I know you've been through enough, but you're the best pattern reader we have. If we go in there, I need you watching for angles I might miss. Elena should have said no. Should have let the FBI handle it properly. Should have walked away from Victor Hale and his dangerous world. But she thought about the 2 security guards being held hostage, about Volkov's cold discussion of casualty counts, about 5,000 people who'd almost died today because a man like that thought death was just a demonstration. Tell me the plan, she said.